Welcome, everybody, to the lab. I'm your host, Joshua Diaz. It's good to see you. Good to be here. Thank you for joining us. We got a great show for you tonight. We got two fantastic guests, and you know them from the interview room. Both of them are authors as well, and I'm honored and pleased to have them here. We have John Lamb, Detective John Lamb, retired, but still writing the books and talking cases. He was you were McDonough's partner for quite some time, right? Oh, I think I have you muted. Sorry.
Worked black and whites together. And I was later Chris's supervisor.
He needs supervision.
Which, he was a handful.
I bet he was.
But a marvelous detective. And before I go any further, I wanted to thank Big Doodle. She sent a message saying that she got my book. Thank you. I appreciate that you bought it. I hope you're entertained by it. I hope you aren't horrified by it. Because I don't, we'll talk about this a little later. I'm eager to get into what we're talking about tonight, but it's a delight to be here. And yeah, Chris was a great detective.
Yeah. And he really was. And just a brilliant
mind. Still is, for that matter.
Absolutely. And we also have Dr. Gary Brucato, a forensic psychologist and author of The New Evil. He is also part of the Cold Case Foundation, and he is the co-author of The New Evil with Dr. Stone as well, the late Dr. Stone. And Dr. Gary, good to see you, and thank you for being here.
Sure. Long time no see.
I know, a long time no see. Yeah, we get these in sometimes, but yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about, the quote unquote newest information in the Nancy Guthrie case. And then, we'll have a little discussion, and then we'll take some calls on the topic, and we'll keep it to the, if you have some questions for the panel, you can ask John or Dr. Gary or myself. And so we'll do a little bit of that as well. But before we get into that, Chris is, I think he's either he's skydiving or getting a tattoo tonight. I can't remember which one he was doing. He said that I'm just kidding. He's not doing either one of those, but he was tied up tonight. So he'll be on next week as well. And we'll see if we can get the gang together again, and do that. But if you're wondering where Chris is, like I said, he's possibly, I don't know. I mean, can you imagine getting a tattoo while skydiving? I mean, that's what I used to do this thing with Chris whenever he would come on my show or I go on his show. And I would always say, look, I went to the library and checked the archives, and I'd always edit these photos of him with like, I would put his face on like a cowboy, or one time it was Santa with a big belly, where his belly was showing, and I go, look what I found at the library. And I did that like almost every time and most every time he would throw his head back and laugh. But I did the one with it's not my first rodeo. He loves to say that. That's his favorite line. But we used to do that all the time. So Chris is a great sport, and I hope he's enjoying his family time tonight as well. So, but tomorrow you guys are both on the interview room. I believe it is 5 o'clock Pacific
time.
7.
7 Mountain, 8 Central. It's 8 East.
Yeah.
One or the other. I just know I need to be here at 8 p.m. my time.
So you guys will be here for that. So that'll be a very it should be a very good show as well. All right, so let's just dive into this here. According to Yahoo News, Nancy Guthrie's disappearance latest updates, the sheriff believes her home was targeted. All right, so that's part of his newest statement that he gave on his own. No public information officer needed again. He also goes into other things that we'll ask Dr. Gary about, but and then he also says that he doesn't rule out kidnapper could strike again, and that he believes that they know. Let me just read this for you. He says, quote, we believe we know why he did this. Not they, he. And we believe that it was targeted, Nanos told NBC Nightly News in an interview that aired on Thursday. Quote, we're not 100% sure of that, so it would be silly to tell people. But yet he already, he's telling people without telling people, I guess. Yeah, don't worry about it. You're not his target. He said it would be silly to say that. Don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. Keep your wits about you, Nanos said. What do you make of that? Just that few statements there, John.
I'm almost speechless. Well, let's take it apart. Yes, obviously the house was targeted. Otherwise, if what he's trying to say is that they knew whoever the abductor was, the suspect was, knew who the occupant of the residence was, well, I think we probably had all figured that out by day one. If he is offering a thought that they have figured out a motive, that would, I think we could infer from that if you have developed a motive, you must have some notion of the identity of the suspect. I think that would be a fair. I don't think I'm leaping to any huge conclusion by saying if I know why someone did something, then likely I know who it was. And the comment about being situationally aware, you should be anyway. I mean, absolutely independent of this event. The world we lived in back in the 1950s and 60s doesn't exist anymore. So that's decent advice. Be situationally aware at all time. But I'm at a loss to understand why you would say you have a notion of a motive. out of the blue. I mean, unless they're, and maybe Gary can take this over for me, unless they're trying to reverse engineer some sort of psychological profile. What do you think, Gary?
I don't think so. My sense is that based on a possible theory of what went on here, a statement was made that might have been a little premature. And the reason I think it's premature is that from a criminological perspective, the statement to the wider public that somebody could strike again is very problematic, because it implies that the motive is not a personal one, but something closer to a serial offender that might keep doing it. For example, if there were a sex crime in a certain neighborhood and then you said, folks, this person might strike again, so lock your doors, you're basically saying there's a serial rapist out on the loose and they could target pretty much anybody, who meets a certain preconceived idea of what they're looking for, and sometimes even more randomly than that. But so and this may even be a homicide. So what are they saying? There's like a serial killer on the loose going around that might. I mean, it's bizarre to say that.
That's
So
exactly what
I
he's.
had a problem with the statement because criminologically it's odd. Don't you think, John? And finish your thought, Josh. You were going to say
It just seems to be a peculiar merging of three statements, because as you've nailed it, if the implied message is lock your doors because he could hit again, well, then we've taken this into an entirely different direction. And I don't know, unless he has information that's not been released, I don't know how you get to that place if we don't know who the suspect is, if we don't know how the crime went down. I just don't understand how we got there.
But is it possible, John, that he means they could strike another family member? Like, in other words, what does that mean? And I think that what happens with these things is there's almost like a kind of forgetting that people in the public might be scared, that it might, that it might alarm people to say that. And so I don't know. I don't know how thought it. I don't like to criticize public officials and things, but I was very puzzled by it.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm not condemning. I am puzzled. Now, if there is information behind these statements that he's talking around them, then so be it. But I don't understand how the comments about this crime suddenly make a left turn, and suddenly we're going in a different direction regarding the possibility of this being the beginning of a series of, or perhaps they think they've connected it with an earlier offense. That's a possibility too.
And then the statement, that obviously that we're talking about here is when he says, don't think for a minute that because it happened to the Guthrie family, you're safe. Keep your wits about you. Okay. Which is first of all, it's an inflammatory statement. It's an ominous statement with very little meaning other than, look, don't think that you're safe. Keep your wits about you. And like you said, John, people are supposed to do that anyway. I mean, you're supposed to lock your doors at night. You're supposed to, go walking with somebody and let people know where you are and things like that. But we're talking about somebody who was kidnapped from their home and has not been seen in over 40 days, an 84-year-old woman. And from what I understand, in that area, there is a large population of older people who do live alone. And so you go from it being targeted and you think the motive to, but none of you are safe. Don't think for a minute that you are. It seems as though he's kind of putting, the cart before the horse there.
I'm not certain. And here's the thing. he may have information that he can't share. I mean, I've been in that situation where murders I've worked and in fact, I worked a serial essay, uh, and I had developed information. I was trained in psychological profiling, fill in the blank, psychological profiling in 1984. That's how old this is. And I had done a profile on this guy, and I had come up with a profile that told me he was going to hit again. And I was told, don't tell the media that, don't tell the PIO that, because we don't want to scare people. And so who knows what internal dynamics are going on? Who knows what sort of internal wrestling match is, if any, is going on with the FBI. But this idea of telling people don't imagine they're safe. And let me just hook back to one thing. Kidnapping of this sort is an extraordinarily rare event, particularly for a woman of that age. So a moment ago, I offered a notion of perhaps they found a previous crime, but a crime like that within the region would have stood out. So I have no idea of where this has come from.
Yeah. And, you know, I've heard a lot of people sort of speculating that, look, this is him sort of spoon feeding the public and trying to make sure, you know, look, we're working the case, blah, blah, blah. But, you know, you also go back to when Kohberger, when they came out and said that there was no threat to the public, when Kohberger hadn't been identified, you know, back in Idaho. Well, that simply couldn't have been true either, and wasn't true. I mean, you have a quadruple killer on the loose. And I would think that people would be less safe in that sort of situation than what's considered a targeted kidnapping of an elderly woman out of her home. Now, don't get me wrong. The world is not a safe place. Okay. There are people out there that are looking to do harm, and you should always do your due diligence and take as much precaution. And once again, if you have a Ring camera or a Nest camera or anything, buy the subscription. Make sure somebody has a panic button, you know, that if your elderly folks live at home alone and things like that. So, I mean, that is a lesson that can be learned in this whole situation. And unfortunately, sometimes you need a reminder. And unfortunately, it's situations like this that do remind us that that's what we need to do. Also, it's in this article, it says that the FBI has recovered additional images from security cameras at Nancy Guthrie's Arizona home. That's according to ABC News. The cameras covered the pool, backyard, side yard, and the side yard of the property. The images are thumbnails only. What does that mean, Dr. Gary? Do you know what that means? They're just still photos?
Yeah, probably. They're just little.
Yeah, low resolution.
Maybe Jason's in the audience and he'll clarify what that means. But let me just, I think it's important to lay something out.
Sure.
And I'm sure John will back up everything I'm about to say. So when you are thinking about a crime where the motive is murky, one of the first steps is going to be to determine if it's an inside matter involving intimates or a stranger from the outside. And the vast majority of these cases where there's no robbery or sexual element that is overt are going to have something to do with somebody who knows you with a different kind of a motive, even if they just know you a little. Now, once you say this person could strike out in the public, you're tipping your hand that what you're hypothesizing is this is somebody motivated in that sort of random way, where there's something that you have that they want, and there are going to be a lot of people in the public that have what they want, and they may randomly strike against the. So what could those things be? Well, the first and most classic is money. You are randomly targeting vulnerable people for money. Okay, this would be a rather elaborate thing to do, to break in there and not take 1 cent, and do a very lousy job of abducting a person without a cane and medicine and having them bleeding and then collect no ransom. So that's pretty silly. But the second big thing is sex. You target people because you have a psychosexual fantasy about their age or their appearance or their vulnerability, or torturing them, or whatever it is that you feel obliged to do, that your fantasies make you feel compelled to do. There's not the slightest indication of that. So what other reason would there be for a random person prowling around like a tiger to pick on people, to break into homes when you're vulnerable and attack you, if there's no stealing and there's no sex, there's no assault? It becomes mind-boggling. But the comment about, don't you think that anybody's safe, tips the hand that that's the way you're thinking. So all I can think of, since there seems to be not even the slightest hint of the sexual, is that perhaps they think this is as simple as a robbery or a abduction gone south, gone haywire. Maybe the victim died. Maybe, they messed it up and simply couldn't put her, she accidentally was killed, or she was intentionally killed. And then, they're basically saying these people may look for another wealthy family to target because they think that's what it was. That's possible. And that does not contradict our longstanding theory that the person might have had some interaction with her and knew her. That's all we've said. We haven't named a name. We just think that this person had some familiarity with her. And it is not uncommon for people that are casing a place or learning your habits to do that. I still think that there's a nexus between someone who knew her better and some hired, or goon or confederate who was clearly an imbecile, didn't do a very good job, that kind of thing. And yet there seems to be hidden behind the curtain some intelligence, because there's persons that have gotten away with this for 41 days, right? And there's so I think it's possible. The only way that I can make this facts come together right now is that they think they targeted a person because of money or celebrity or something like that, and they could be out there looking for another family to target because it didn't work out, or they want more money, or that kind of thing. I mean, John, don't you think that's the only way to reconcile this notion of random crime where nobody is safe and the facts on the ground? I don't know how else to.
Well, and that does explain the dichotomy of the two comments, because in one hand, he is saying the Guthrie residence was targeted.
Right.
But 2 moments later, he's also saying, but it could happen to you.
Right.
And that's your explanation of this is the only way that you can rectify those two statements, because other than that, they're in complete contrast with each other.
And a basic break in and rob her is obviously ridiculous, because they rob nothing and you don't have to abduct a person that you're that part is really, so it has to be. I mean, and look, I'm having a lot of trouble with this because it doesn't jive with my instincts. Okay. I hate when my instincts don't match what I'm being forced to conclude based on facts on the ground, but something in my instincts is bothering me. And I think you too.
Yeah. Right? This is an exceptionally rare crime.
Yes.
And I wish I wish your viewers could understand how rare this sort of nighttime entering a residence, and abducting a woman. It's exceptionally rare, abducting an elderly woman.
But John, just out of curiosity, how many of these break-ins where somebody puts on an elaborate outfit in the middle of the night, ski mask or whatever, isn't that actually pretty rare?
I never I worked a number of, in California, they're known as either hot prowls or cat burglaries.
Yeah.
And none of them ever wore a balaclava or ski mask. And part of the reason for that is the ski mask covers the ears. And if you're entering a residence in the middle of the night, you're going to be relying on your ability to hear and detect the homeowners. So why would you, and what's more, a ski mask doesn't stay in place. So you're also potentially have the chance that your vision is going to be obscured. So I can just tell you, I went into cop work in 1974. I never saw a nighttime hot prowl cat burglary where they wore a mask. In fact, for the most part, they never wore gloves either, because the being able to use the dexterity to grab the property and get out, speed, stealth, and not being seen and heard are the operative tools.
Well, I'll tell you something that from a psychological perspective has bothered me from the jump. Well, at least bothered me since we've had the door cam images. So I can understand the mask and the gloves and the whole thing because they have a practical purpose. I understand that. What I don't understand is having the firearm out in the open, because there is a chance that somebody sees you on the porch or whatever. It's bad enough you've got this covering, but you've got a firearm dangling over your crotch like a loincloth. That is bizarre. And I can't understand what the purpose. I'm always very interested in anything that you do that is not necessary. Why would you do it? You understand? It's sort of like this is going to sound like an elaborate. So forgive me. I think like an author. I can't help myself. But it's sort of like when you're thinking about the way evolution works. When you see a behavior in nature that looks like a waste of time, you've got to think, why would something take the energy to do that? So, simple example. Why do trees take the time to turn their leaves red before shedding them? It takes energy and chlorophyll. It's a waste of energy in the tree. Well, it turns out there is a reason you do it. The tree does it because it wants to use the leaves to fertilize its roots after they fall off. And if it turns the leaves those colors, the red and so forth, insects will not eat them. They think they're poisonous. So the leaves fall off, they fertilize the tree, and the tree grows again. In other words, it looks like a waste of time, but there's a reason. Well, I think that way about crime. Whenever you get the metaphor I'm trying to make, that it wouldn't happen if it didn't have a purpose. So why would you do that? Why would you have is it to frighten her? Is it performative? What is the significance of it? Because otherwise it's just weird. It's also a stupid way to hold it. So it looks like it's for show. Doesn't
it? So basically what you're saying is but the still or the doorbell video, though, I don't think that was ever intended to be seen. I don't think that they thought that it was ever going to be seen. So
but she was going to see.
So okay, so it was for her. It was for her.
I think so. Don't you think so, John? It was like to frighten an 84-year-old woman into submission.
It's something I've dealt with. I've got hundreds and hundreds of armed suspects over the years.
Right.
I never knew one who had a holster.
And the wrong holster.
And what's more, the wrong holster worn, and I've heard people say, "Oh, well, it's because there could be a silencer on the pistol." And the way it's being carried, all he had to do was move the wrong way, and the gun could either come out of the holster, or if it's a cheaply enough made auto pistol, it could go off and he's singing soprano in the Vienna Boys Choir. It's an exceptionally dangerous way to carry a gun. And genuine crooks shove it in their waistband, shove it in the pocket.
Exactly.
It doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
But what I'm saying is, unless you're an absolute lunatic or an imbecile, there's a reason There's a reason. And I'm inclined to think that it had a function. I also wonder about the waving the plants in front of the camera. I want to understand, that's like, in a weird way, if this guy got arrested and I had an opportunity to talk to him, it's something I want to know. I would say I just want to understand what that was about, because it bothers me in that Columbo kind of way, where you're sitting up going like it doesn't make sense, but it doesn't make any sense. And so I think that these little extras bother me. The risk that was incurred, that's odd. The comfort level is odd. Why her? If you're just looking for a vulnerable person, I mean, let's say, this was just a financial crime. Well, then why don't you steal something? You're in there for 41 minutes, it looks like. Take some. She had to have something valuable.
But that's the thing. But
We
don't actually know if they did or didn't, other than Nancy.
Well, yeah, well, exactly. And I mean that's a good point. And what about that no one has come for the reward? If your motivation is financial and they're offering $1 million,
$1 million too.
Throw somebody under the bus and take the money and you win. That's the other thing that's strange. It doesn't seem to make sense that somebody who's just a money grubber out there is involved in a little cabal, because there's very little honor among thieves. That usually sends somebody running for a ransom, or if you fear that you're about to get captured, you run and you say, I'll make a deal.
Right.
So that something is, just as Chris McDonough would say, something, what does he say? Something's not right in River City.
Yeah.
We better take that line from the Music Man.
Well, and Texas ER nurse says, wouldn't you want to share the motive to keep the public safe? Well, John, I don't know what you think, but from what I understood, the way that he said it is that he doesn't want to share the motive because he doesn't want to be wrong.
Maybe.
That's certainly a possibility. I don't know what his motive is for being obscure about the motive, but if you actually had information about the motive that wasn't going to endanger your ability to apprehend a suspect, then I would want to share that information with the public on the off chance that somebody is going to be able to give me maybe the 2 or 3 missing pieces of the puzzle I need. And the thing is, we don't know really what he was told regarding motive. It might be something as simple as the way we've been bouncing ideas around here. And he could go and say, well, my investigators think this, or, they think they might know a motive. I think he either has the information and is concerned, or has been told, if you share this, you're gonna give this guy a heads up, or he's using information that has been floated throughout the investigation. I mean, I could say, oh well, I think I have a motive. Just from looking at it. So,
yeah, but motive could be something just as simple as financial. And I think that and I think most of us probably agree that there probably is some sort of financial element to this. Now, what is that finance? Was it a debt? What was it? An inside thing? Was it I don't know. Was it a will? I'm not inferring that the family by Sheriff Nanos has been cleared, but I'm just saying that I would think that there is, nobody's going to do this. Just,
well,
now, unless Dr. Gary, unless the crime is sexual in nature.
What evidence is there of that? And why would you take her out of the unless you were like one of these organized offenders that takes the person out to take them somewhere and have all the time you want with them, like Ted Bundy or something? I really don't think so. So look, this is my concern. I have said many, many times, and I think, John, you agree with me, that this looks like a nexus between a person who does the job and the schemer behind the curtain, as what I've called the chef and the waiter. Okay. And what I'm concerned about is I think they're going to catch the waiter. And they're talking about the motive of the waiter as if all there is the waiter. And what I'm worried about is that the person who put the waiter up to it probably going to, at this time, is not even on the radar or getting caught, or there's not enough evidence to get that or ensnare that person unless the underling yaps. So my guess is they're concentrating on catching the drone, right? And then they're hoping that will lead to the center of the beehive, right? So that's the whole thing. I think they're going to get the underling, and because these people are not very bright, probably through technological means, traces that they left. They don't realize the yapping they probably did for weeks, if not months, to plan it, thinking everything was hidden and encrypted, meeting, whatever, movements picked up by the phone, something. And that takes time to put together. They're probably going to get that or people. And then they'll say to them in some closed room, tell us who's really at the center of this, or you're going to jail for a really long time. And then I think we'll start to get to the truth of it. I cannot accept that this was nothing but a couple of goofballs who, decided that they were going to abduct an 84-year-old woman. Why? Because is the logic that she had a wealthy daughter who would be able to pay the ransom, but then she died, a la Lindbergh baby?
And no ransom demand is made?
But then, right, exactly. And you don't even bother to try to keep her alive, make the slightest effort, like bring her medicine with you. So it just points, I hate to say it, it looks almost like a hit job where you're trying to make it look like an abduction. But what the sheriff is saying and so forth suggests to me they really think it's as simple as the chef. I mean, the waiter.
Well, yes, and I was going to say, if you listen to his statement, we believe we know why he did this, and he's specifically referring to the person on the ring or the doorbell camera. He's saying that we know why he did this. Well, he did what exact? First of all, what exactly did he do other than abduct Nancy? And do either, obviously I don't think either one of you believe that this is one person.
No. And go ahead, John.
But that's what he's inferring there, that it's one person.
He says this guy, right?
He says we believe we know why he did this.
He that's the phrase. Yeah.
You know what? I'll always give the sheriff the benefit of the doubt. Perhaps a single person did this, but my take on this, from what I've seen, is that purely from a logistics point of view, you would need two people, one to control the victim, the other one to drive the vehicle. And but I'm not a brainiac. I'm not going to claim I'm the font of all knowledge. If they feel that it's a single suspect and the proof comes in, then I'll just say good work. But I would be looking for more than one person.
Yeah.
Right. And it may be, John, that they can't pin it on whoever is truly, maybe this whole thing. And they're waiting to see what they can get out of the underling. This is just a hypothesis, but I wouldn't be surprised based on prior cases and experience. I mean, it sounds like you wouldn't either, that this is how you would handle it if you thought there was a mastermind and a doer. Now, why not sexual? Well, first of all, there aren't many statistics on elderly sexual assault. Ann Burgess and I do study that at Boston College. I'm a visiting scholar at Boston College. I do research with her there, all the time. And we have looked at that a little bit. And, I can tell you that based on the little data that there is, generally when an octogenarian is targeted sexually, it's usually by somebody who knows the victim and has targeted them in an extreme way, an explosion of violence. It's usually not just a sexual assault. There's usually ferocious beating, for example, a period of preceding domestic aggression or elder abuse or something like that, culminating in that kind of violation. Now, you can also see it if you think, for example, of Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. You can see it with a drug addict or a serial killer who is indiscriminate and disorganized, who's just randomly breaking in and opportunistically targeting anybody. So if you look, for example, at the victimology of somebody like Richard Ramirez, there were children, there were elderly people, there were women, there were men, there were, right? I mean, it was all over the map because the guy
Across the spectrum, yeah.
right, and he hated the entire, human race, right? So it had almost like a randomness, and I think that was part of creating for himself the feeling of being supernatural, that anybody could get hit with the lightning bolt. And he did think that, remember, hopped up on drugs, there was always a kind of quasi deranged quality to Ramirez. For example, there was one victim, I think a 16-year-old girl, that he was strangling with a phone cord, and an electric jolt came out of the phone, and he thought that was God fighting the devil, and he left. You see what I'm saying? So there is that quality to that. Okay, so take that kind of story off the table, right? Some nut job that's, or drug, a drugged up person who's randomly targeting people. There's no sign of that here. Although the guy at the door looks maybe like he's on something that's like a downer or something.
I've heard a lot of people suggest that he could be high or something.
Yeah, but on what? Not like hopped up on cocaine or something.
Yeah, not meth or anything. Maybe he smoked a blunt, but
right.
So I just don't see it. Now, is it possible there's some fluid or something, and that's what they put into CODIS, and they couldn't get a hit or whatever? It's possible, but let's just say anything goes with this case, and it will be educational to people like me who study crime. There's always these rare things that happen, but if you were making an educated guess based on statistics, it's improbable that was the motive, because it doesn't look like other cases that involve that. And then you transition to the robbery thing, and that doesn't make any sense. So then you have to start thinking, maybe it's just being made to look like something else. And it's more like an Occam's razor thing. Who benefits? Who might have slipped somebody a few bucks to do this, or had a more personal motive? And that's where we start thinking, in conjunction with the familiarity and the comfort, somebody crossed paths with her. Somebody kind of knew her. Somebody knew how they might benefit. And that does not implicate somebody who's related to you. It could just be the pool person, the mailman, that kind of thing. So, but don't you think, John, it really doesn't make sense to frame it as one of those motives that a random person out in the community, and why is he not saying, look, this is a serial thing. This could be any town, any state, anywhere. The whole
that's the inference.
Right.
That is the inference. Now, he could back up and simply say, well, no, it's merely a generalized warning that maybe it's not this person, but it could be somebody else. But the inference of the statement is that, don't think you're safe because it happened to her. And I'm with you regarding my strong inclination to eliminate SA from the mix. And if I'm wrong, then, it wouldn't be the first time, probably not even in the last hour. But from my experience working both this sort of burglary and homicide cases, that would not be the first thing I would look at, because as you identified it, you'd see an explosion of violence. You would see just this over-the-top overkill situation.
Right. Yeah. And you wouldn't initially think it was just a missing person situation, and the family calling in would have been horrified, screaming, telling them she's dead, she's got, whatever. This is like they thought it was a missing person, like she could have wandered out. You
Yeah,
know
if
what
it
I'm saying?
was SA, they'd have walked into a scene that would have looked like an abattoir. It
Yeah,
would have, you'd have walked in and you'd have done an immediate psychological profiler where you'd look and go, I wonder what crazy SOB did this. And you would have done a profile because
right.
it would have been a crazy SOB.
And this is the other thing, Josh. I mean, just to sort of read into the comment you made earlier. I mean, it sounds like you're also suggesting that there's something odd about the message because it's like saying we don't have it under control. It scares
Yeah.
the crap out of people because it's like, if how could you say we have leads, we think this is what happened, or whatever, and then imply that there's no control over it? It's like saying to the public, well, could be anybody.
Well, it's
That's
such
scary.
it's such a flippant statement too, because he says
It's
we
not
think we
disorganized.
know why they did this, but we're not going to tell you because we're not 100% sure why they did this. And so why even make that statement? That I don't understand. But he seems to be having that's kind of his.
Because it's 40 some odd days and the public is hungry for an answer. I think there's a sense of needing to say something because it's like TikTok, And the other thing is, now look, I don't want to say something that's morbid but the fact of the matter is the likelihood that an 84-year-old woman without her meds is alive after 41 days is very low. I think it is a beautiful thing to maintain hope, but think about what that would entail, right? I mean, aren't you two of that opinion too? I mean,
Yeah,
that's very, very unlikely,
what do
and
you think?
therefore, that that adds a whole other element to this matter.
Yeah, I don't look. I mean, I've kind of been under the assumption for, as the days go on, the hope that she's found alive has obviously, to me personally, faded significantly, especially after the first, I don't know, few days, really. But then the blood on the porch and finding out about her heart medication and her pacemaker and all these things. So I don't know. I think that the statement was, I think it's kind of a careless, the entire thing to me seemed like a careless statement. And if that's overly critical, to some people, I apologize. But to go, frankly, you're not safe. Just don't think that you're safe just because it was this family that was targeted. Well, look, there are people out there that prey on people constantly. Anybody, you leave your door open, eventually somebody's going to try and walk through there and you know but
Yeah, but you could just say, because this is a world in which crime could happen anywhere at any time, be on the lookout. Be careful. In this case, don't be frightened. We have some leads. We're on top of it. Anything that could be done, we're doing. But of course, the public should be alert. But the way that it was framed gives the implication, like, could be you next, because this is just somebody out there on the prowl. And and why in that neighborhood? Why would they attack in the same neighborhood unless they're a complete moron? Why would they would go somewhere else? It would be random. They would be traipsing around, and we'd find a case that unexpectedly is linked to it in some other state, or something like that, right? Right, John? I mean, with that type, there you pop up randomly.
If once you know an area is hot, a burglar is going to shift operation. And I'm just talking about burglars right now. But hot, like for instance, I can remember a hot prowl series from 1983, where the guy was hitting in North County, San Diego. He'd hit one night in Oceanside, and then he'd hit in Vista, 11 miles inland, and then he'd hit in Carlsbad, 8 miles southwest, not hitting the same neighborhoods. And once the neighborhoods heated up with the cops, the crook went to ground. He stopped operating.
Of course.
And so you would anticipate that if this person, and I'm speculating, let's just say hypothetically that this was simply a burglary gone wrong. And instead of running like every other burglar I've known, he decided to take his victim with him. He would be out of the area. It would be too hot. So I would say, well, this would be a line of inquiry for investigators, and hopefully they're doing this, which would be, because I know these cops have had to have sat down and said, who do we know around here who is capable of doing this? You come up with a bunch of names, and then you try and find them. And then you say, oh, what do you know? Richard Rowe, the burglar, well, he vanished a month ago. Let's find him. I mean, there are things you could be doing after the fact, but as you've mentioned, this sort of general warning that you could be next, I'm not certain what purpose that serves, again, unless he has some double secret, was the line from Animal House, double secret probation sort of information that about it, and doesn't feel he can share it, but then don't go that direction.
Well, it also implies that there's no clear victimology, so it could be anybody. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, you say the person is targeted. Well, then why? Why?
And then you infer it's random right after that.
Right. So first there's a reason for the targeting, and then it's random, so it could be anybody. That doesn't make sense. So, and I guess what I'm saying is, I don't understand why anything had to be said at all.
Well, he felt he had to say something.
Yeah, but that's kind of what I was thinking.
Friday's the slow news day.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking that as well. As like, but I don't know. It seemed wrong. Do you think?
It's not indiscriminate. That's the point. It's
true.
not an indiscriminate thing. Then don't imply that it could be anybody. Next.
I think Donna means perps. Yeah. Do I think perps participate in these online chats? Dr. Gary, you would know better than anybody. Do you think that happens?
Do you think perps participate in these line chats? Well, I think sometimes they do it to, insert themselves to get a sense of what's going on, to throw people off. I think Kohberger did that a little bit, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But that went with his personality to do that. It depends on the psychology of there are certain types of offenders who do mastermind types, things like that. It would be consistent with the person behind the curtain to do such a thing, that kind of personality. The only reason that the dopey one who seems to have executed this whole thing, or team that did it, they would do it just to sort of get an idea how much danger they're in terms of arrest or things like that. But as far as the enjoying the public being scared, messing with the narrative, that's more a mastermind type that gets off on that and has this colossal ego, that kind of thing. Kohberger didn't just watch Enton. If you saw the Dateline episode, you know that on his phone was evidence he was watching plenty of programs about
and doing online searches as well
about a number of serial killers who were sexually motivated. Not just one or two, but 20 some odd. I'm sure that was just a coincidence. Although he obviously was studying crime, but he was looking up people that had nothing to do with his studies, and I don't know too many students who cosplay as an offender and take photos.
This comment says, guy at the doorbell wears a pinky ring. I don't know if you guys have seen that or if you've discussed that on the interview room. I saw Nancy Grace talking about it, and there looks to be something under the guy's glove.
Okay.
Well, what are the chances that he would be wearing one now? I mean, that's kind of my
I don't know. I mean, it doesn't seem to be the sharpest tool in the shed, but it's hard to say. But I guess what's bothering me is like if I have a person come to see me psychotherapeutically who has a rare thing happen to them, like sometimes I've treated people who've been victims of mass shootings. They've been in mass shootings or other events. I'll say to them, based on the statistics, the good news is it's virtually impossible you're going to be in another one.
Right.
You're afraid all the time that there's going to be another one, but in all of my data, in all of the data I have with the Raggy Gergis at Columbia Medical Center in our Columbia Mass Murder database, it's like virtually non-existent. I am aware of one case of a person who survived Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, the Nicholas Cruz shooting, and went to Michigan and then was in a school shooting there.
Oh,
okay. But I'm including that in my next book because I'm amazed at the probability of it. But the thing is, virtually non-existent. So you say
that they survived the second one?
They survived the second one.
I hope they bought a lottery ticket that night.
Right. Never going to happen again, but probably. So what am I saying? I'm saying that what you say to the community is this extraordinary rare thing happened here. Chances are it's not going to happen again. It was already an improbable event. Only an idiot is going to target the same neighborhood again. The place is like, loaded. It's crawling with law enforcement and reporters and podcasters and people that are making content out of one oddball walking down the street. Right. So what are the chances the person's going to target that neighborhood again? It just doesn't make sense. So the truth is that in a weird way, that neighborhood is like safer statistically than it was before this event. If it's going to happen, it'll happen somewhere else.
Yeah, if I know cops, that neighborhood's being patrolled like crazy. Now, I understand Pima County Sheriff can be thin on the ground, like a lot of sheriff's offices in unincorporated areas. But you nailed it, Gary. That area is getting a lot of attention, and I'm certain the neighbors, the residents, are very aware of their surroundings.
Right. Well, I part of me wants to maintain hope that they're just holding everything close to the vest because they're trying to fool the mastermind into being comfortable and messing up. I would like to think if life were a movie or a TV show, that's what would be going on. The purpose of this would be to lull a smarty pants into thinking that everything is cool, and then they go and make a Bitcoin deal or do some stupid thing and get themselves busted. Could also be, like I said earlier, that they're trying to get the underling to lead to the Moriarty figure behind the curtain. There could be that too. It's also possible that they really fell for it, that there really just is this superficial thing that went on. And it's just a good old fashioned, situation where you have a perp who does something, messes it up, whatever, and it didn't go as planned, and that's who you're looking for, and that's the end of it. There are some ideas that I think are a little out there. For example, I really don't think this was a cartel. That kind of thing. That's one of those ones that's out there. That I've heard everything at this point. So she was taken into
Epstein, I heard somebody saying, "Oh no, it was some Trump supporter mad because of negative coverage," and that doesn't make any sense. Can I answer Jason's question?
Yeah.
Yes, please. Yes,
please do. Jason,
again, I don't want to give Sheriff Nanos the piñata treatment. He's handling a very difficult situation. All I can say is that in my experience, the police and sheriff's administrators that I worked for during my career, the top brass, very few of them ever actually worked homicide. So they don't know the ins and outs. They don't know the dynamics of a case. They don't know what needs to be said, because remember, the people at the top of these organizations are ultimately politicians. their primary concern is regrettably to make their organization and, by secondary definition, themselves look good. And so my firm belief would be is that the less said, the better, unless you have unless you have solid information like we've got an arrest. But I will just close out my comment by saying that I'm anything but surprised that these comments are being made, because I've been seeing this in one form or another since the mid 1970s. So you'd think at some point you would develop an expectation that these things are simply going to happen.
Right. And
right.
It's let's see here. All right. Pacemakers. Hold on. Sorry. Pacemaker.
Josh, are we going to take some calls after?
Yeah, we are. I got the link ready to go. Pacemaker spiked at 2 a.m. Do you think she had a heart attack due to weak heart by being awoken by shock and trauma, and this changed everything for the perp? I mean, that's certainly a plausible situation, but it's just impossible to tell. I can't imagine the fear that she was going through, though. When this was happening, it's unfathomable, to be honest. Just terrible. But thank you for that as well. And also, Ginger, thank you so much for gifting 5 lab memberships. I'm going to post this link now. We'll take questions just specifically about the Guthrie case, and we'll do that here for a little bit, and then we'll move on here. So let me put this in the chat. And I pinned it at the top. Let me see if I have any other questions. But Jason earlier said, yes, still photos. We're talking about the thumbnail. Do not rely on default settings and passwords and password of devices. Reach out to tech-savvy family members, friends. Use enable all features.
Just so you know, John, Jason is a person with expertise in IT who has called in a couple of times to Josh's show and been helpful to the audience in terms of
he provided some amazing information.
Yeah, he's here right now. Let's go ahead and take the call.
Yeah, very interesting person, and with this sort of niche knowledge about,
because I'm a Luddite, man. I don't.
Well, Jason, we actually have Jason on the line now. Go ahead, Jason.
Oh, perfect. Hi, Jason.
Oh, I got him muted.
He's doing his Calvin Coolidge impersonation.
He's muted.
I knew John would get that.
Remember the line when they said Calvin Coolidge is dead? When they said, "How do they know?"
Oh, I know. My favorite is when the reporter went up to him at the White House and said, "I made a bet that I could get you to say more than 2 words," and he said, "You lose."
Good evening.
Yeah, is that Jason? Hi, Jason.
Jason, go ahead.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Jason.
Because we're young and hip.
Yeah.
Yeah, nobody said
I just heard Chris.
1980.
Right,
I happened to
exactly.
be on YouTube before, and I got an alert that Chris was on Jeanette. It's another YouTuber of true crime. Yeah, it was a very interesting show.
I was too busy churning butter to watch.
Yeah.
I was building a barn in the back with Sean.
Hey, Doctor, before you mentioned Columbo, as you can know, not only am I a fan, okay, but my worst habit is right before ending the call, I always got one last thing to say.
Just one more thing. Yeah. You do it exactly. It's hilarious. You got to get you one of those trench coats.
Yeah. John, I wanted your opinion on the call and text from Derek Kalia in Los Angeles. I know you've spoken about it before in the interview room. I still think that is one piece while looking at this case that there's things we don't know there. There's investigating going on in the background, or am I just overlooking? Am I just thinking too much of it?
No, you're not. You're drawing the same conclusion that we are. Is that, and I know I've said this on the interview room, but I think it bears repeating. This is the most famous crime case in the world. Now you'd have to have a belt-size IQ to say, let me jump into the middle of this and send a what could be interpreted as a ransom demand
Right.
to the family of the victim, and knowing that they have locked down on all of their electronic communication, that doesn't make any sense, because apparently this guy can like drive from point A to point B and he apparently can operate normally. That is such a stupid thing to do, a recklessly almost self-destructive thing to do. And no, I don't think you're wrong at all. I think that, and I'm hoping that there is enormous investigation going on in the background. Now, if it's just an opportunistic thing, we may learn that, but it just impresses me as being a painfully stupid thing to do.
Right, but John, don't you think that it feels almost like that might be the FBI part of this?
Oh yes,
They're
yeah.
looking at that, and Pima County is just looking at what's
Oh,
on.
absolutely.
I mean, it feels like that. And that's the thing that I hope there is more collaboration going on between FBI and Pima County than we seem to get a flavor for.
Oh, I'm certain there is.
But I hope so. I could see that it's almost like two parallel, like what Chris calls parallel tracks.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually it'll all be woven together, because there's a reason there's a federal element to this.
Well, yes, very, very much so. And the I've worked joint cases with the FBI, and what you see happening at the upper levels is not what's happening down below, where it's just cops working with each other. So yeah, I'm confident that they're pursuing that, but it's a joint investigation.
Right. Now, Jason, you said something last night that I thought was very great interest to Chris and John and Bob and Mike and what you were explaining, as I understood it, is that it's entirely possible that part of what's slowing this down is this meticulous recreation of data from cameras and so forth that the offender or offenders may not realize can be patched together. It just may take time. And I'm wondering if you could flesh out a little bit what you meant by that, because I thought it had an almost like news breaking kind of insight to it. So explain that a little better, and tell me if I'm miscomprehending what I think you said. But that's what you were saying, right? That there's a way to replicate. Okay, so explain that. They were very piqued by that, and I think John will find it as I do.
Okay. Yeah, no, everything you just explained it very well, Dr. Brucato. Now keep in mind that the server that Nest has is not meant to keep data and provide it to their clients, because you're not paying for a subscription. But like I've explained before, the way they operate is they decided that when you do not have a subscription, instead of your motion alert going directly to your app, it gets sent to this massive server first, bounces off of it, then goes into your app. Then that footage is just looped over and keeps getting recorded over. So what happens in time with all this footage that is bouncing off that server is it keeps getting removed over and over again. Now,
and just to be clear, it's removed, but somewhere out in cyberspace, it still exists.
In the back end, it would be equivalent to taking an old VCR tape, let's say, and you re-record over it,
Right.
over and over. Okay. And as you go over and over it, everything behind it gets scrambled more and more. But on the server, what they're able to do, it's equivalent to when someone has, I hate using this example, but let's say a pedophile knows that FBI is after them or something. So what they think they're so smart, they're going to delete what they have on their phone or their hard drives. It's
Actually,
very easy for.
a good example of something
Yeah.
that I think probably happens all the time with unsophisticated.
Yeah, exactly. So they think that they're one step ahead and they're never going to get caught, and it's not retrievable. That's not true. But now, let's say if one of those pedophiles has something that they deleted 5 years ago, and they've reused that hard drive over and over, they've wiped it completely, they've reinstalled operating systems. It's still not impossible to retrieve that data, but it's going to take longer because you're going far back in time, and and if you've re-wiped your device over and over, the FBI has the tools to do this. So in regards to this particular server, the fact that they're going days back now, because apparently the sheriff's department had indicated that the footage that they recovered was not at the night of the abduction, but was previously, was a few days before. They didn't give an exact date. But now, like I said last night, that is great news, because this means that they have been scrambling at that server. So I think that what's happened in the back end is after they retrieve, actually most likely how they retrieved that footage from Nest the first time around, was the FBI probably requested a copy of that entire hard drive, an exact clone of it. And then a sophisticated clone that don't only give us what's there, but let's get all those layers that are have been removed from it. So they probably took an exact replica clone of that, and what they are doing is they are scavenging that server with sophisticated tools in order to go into the deep layers of things that have been deleted, re-recorded over, and wiped out, etc., to try and retrieve it. And it is great news that they have found that still images from days before the abduction, and that they were able to do it. And the timing to me makes sense, because this is a very sophisticated operation and not always possible. Now, mind you, I'm not the FBI here and I don't have their tools, but I used to be, I'm a former director of IT at a university. And there was something that that I was requested to try to go back in time over our video cameras. And we sent it off to some sophisticated data companies to try and retrieve it.
Sure.
We had a budget in mind to try and keep that data, but it was not possible to get it because we had used that server and re-recorded over it and so forth for quite some time. Now, how do we, send it to the FBI or something, or even gone, let's say, to more advanced technical investigators, forensics, let's say digital forensic, it is possible. And it's also very at a high cost. Okay, to do this, it gets very costly. So let's say if your hard drive breaks down and there's some fragments on it that are corrupted. If you just bring it to a local box store that has these geniuses and geeks, let's say, they'll try and do it, but they may tell you, okay, we're not able to do it, but there's other people out there that can. So the more sophisticated you get, the more cost there is involved. And that's why a lot of people offhand don't have these tools, but the FBI certainly does. And also the FBI has tools that only they have, and that you don't want in the hands of people with malicious intent. I hope that answers your question, Doctor.
Yeah.
Well, it implies that some of the delay, might simply be this process takes a long time.
Right.
Yeah, it does, because you see, from the research that I've done and from what I know about these cameras, because I do consulting on them as well in my field, is that without a subscription, your feed is there, your actual motion alerts and the still images it catches are available on your device up to 3 hours. And then from there, it gets re-recorded over and over internally on your app. So if that's happening and everything is being sent to their cloud server first, then that's also occurring in the cloud. So after 3 hours, it looks like for each user, it's re-recording over and over. And in time, most likely what Nest is doing is basically archiving or like kind of like deleting and re-recording over that server, because they're going to keep that, because mind you, you're talking about millions of users. Also, you're not paying for that subscription. So they're not going to put that much money into that server in order to keep all of those alerts going. So that's why you're most likely dealing with a short span period of just a few hours per user on that scattered server. And also, it explains why it took so long to get that footage. And also, just to begin with, because of, like I've explained before, that server is just scattered data from everybody because of how their infrastructure is set. And the reason why Nest would do that is to gather info, especially from, let's say, from marketing purposes, but not in a bad sense, but to understand, okay, these users that are not using a cloud subscription, how many alerts do they get? You know, maybe for marketing intentions, they can then send you an email of marketing saying, "Hey, you know, you get over 1,000 motion alerts, and you're not subscribed to the cloud. We highly suggest that you do." So that's most likely why they have it sent to their server first. Whereas, like I've explained before, Ring does not operate like this. If Nancy Guthrie had a Ring camera, this would not have been possible at all, because nothing gets sent to their servers without a subscription. And just on that note, about I just heard something from Chris on that show I was recalling, and Jeanette. He mentioned something interesting, and so did the host of the show, is that apparently there was reports that from a local Arizona station that the FBI went back to the restaurant just a few days ago that Nancy and Savannah and Annie visited during that Today Show. Yeah. So to me, I think that it's not a coincidence the timing of the still images coming into play, because the sheriff indicated that there was people that were caught on that still image in the backyard, but then he mentioned it's not anything to do with the investigation, but who knows, right? So I think perhaps maybe what the FBI is doing is they may be asking the restaurant not only questions, but can you give us your footage? How much do you have of it? How far back do you go? And maybe they're trying to see if there's any recognition from the images that they got now with the restaurants. Perhaps they're suspecting that that same person visited the restaurant. So I don't think that timing is a coincidence there, which is good news.
I mean, I would agree with you, and I heard that too. I heard that they were going back over places that they visited, and you know, and then this video of her, you know, when she was on the Today Show doing the, what was it, the she was making a bed with the hospital corners. Did you see that as well?
Oh,
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Which is kind of eerie because, you know, that's where
It is.
she was allegedly abducted from. But I think I've asked you this before, but do you think that they have more images or video from inside the house that they haven't shared, or that they're working to get?
Yeah, so Chris answered that question at a law enforcement perspective, you know, if or not they're holding stuff. Chris does think that on a law enforcement perspective, perhaps they do. On the technical side, we would have to know more about inside the house. Inside the house gets tricky because In order for these images to be captured, okay, you have to have, without a subscription, is that you have to have motion alerts enabled. So let's say for whatever reason, Nancy had decided, okay, I'm not going to have motion alerts enabled outside on that Ring camera. Nothing would have been sent over to the Nest server, and because it wouldn't be pushing anything out and it wouldn't be alerting her of motion. So it's interesting to know if inside the house, if motion alert was enabled or not. Now I bring that point up for another reason. I've seen screenshots on various YouTubers on the ground of the time when Nancy was asking recommendations from people in the local Tucson groups on Facebook, which camera should she get? And she happened to mention that she was getting it for purposes of capturing animals outside the house. Now, at a time, she had a dog, right? Am I correct that she did have a dog at one time?
Up until December.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that could be, perhaps she had the cameras inside to keep an eye on the dog while she was out of the house. And if that was the case, you would not have alerts on inside. I have a dog, and I don't have my alerts on inside the house because I have plenty outside that capture alerts. So you don't necessarily have motion alerts turned on inside because you don't want to be bombarded with false motion for no reason. So if it would be interesting to know if she had motion alerts turned on or not inside, because then I would say, yeah, for sure, then they captured more alerts, more images. Perhaps there is more that they're not sharing with us outside of the house. But again, it depends on when did the perp break that camera.
Yeah.
And then we're also dealing with the possibility of inside. Was there a way for them to move around at first without getting caught on that camera? Let's say going on the ground and crawling and unplugging those cameras, or let's say not being captured but throwing something at them so that they fall on the floor, then break them without capturing their images. So all of these aspects would come into play first before I could say if they have the images or not. All of that depends.
Right. Got you.
Well, I think that's been very helpful.
Yeah, it's great information. Really quick.
No problem.
Some days, Dance asked, can you ask Jason some tips for the community to have their footage stored, even if it's on a flash drive in the home? That's where the subscription comes into play, right?
Yes. Now, I would highly suggest that everyone get your subscriptions, have paid subscriptions to the cloud. If you're wary of them not, let's say, a company having access to your info, then there are plenty of cameras out there where you could, you don't need a cloud subscription. You can buy your own without dealing with things like Nest or Ring, have an SD card in them, and then take the SD card out and back them up. I highly suggest that you reach out to tech-savvy friends and family to ask the same questions. And also, don't rely on default settings and alerts of any of these devices, default settings or passwords. Always change your passwords to these devices, to the default ones. And also, learn how to use the technology, because today, there is so many things that you could set up on there to specifically watch out for and to look for. And there's things that are not automatically enabled that that are very useful in order to have all these things set up. Right. So there's plenty of ways to store this footage, and you don't necessarily have to be paying something on a monthly basis either. It is so important. To me, unfortunately, without a subscription or without backing up that info, there's no point in having it, because unless you just want your doorbell to ring and to watch it live. But besides that, you're missing out on all these images that could be stored. Because, I mean, let's face it, without the FBI's involvement here, we wouldn't have these things, and we don't have access to that type of, tools in order to recover data that you're absolutely going to need. So it's very important to do that.
Definitely. Well, yeah. Jason, as always, stellar call. I appreciate it. And, Jason and I have talked about just doing a show exclusively about this information and just kind of giving it
Good idea.
to do it. So I think that would be that's something that we will go ahead and go forward with, Jason, and I'll be in touch with you about it.
Actually, Josh, I just have a quick question here from Janet, asking if I know if there's timestamps. There could be a reason why they haven't released it, but in my professional opinion, on a technical perspective, there's no stamps when it's sent off to the cloud without a subscription. So I think that's why they haven't released it, because nothing is stamped on that cloud. All you have is those images, and that's why it's so impressive that the FBI recovered it, because it's just scattered data of all this footage. They would have had to. Now there is a timestamping on the timeline that the sheriff released. And that was most likely captured on Nancy's locked phone about that motion alert. Or the 3 hours, if they were able to unlock her phone, they may have been able to find it, because after breaking the camera, there's no other footage there. So even if there was 24 hours after that they're reading those timestamps on her phone, the perp broke the camera. So that was actually a foolish thing to do. And even the mastermind did not do his homework as to what happens with or without a cloud subscription. Had they not broken those cameras, then we would be talking about a longer delay of that footage being recovered from the front door, because we're getting into the area of Dr. Brucato's question about retrieving this data under several layers, because there would have been more layers on top of the footage at the door, which is why they recovered it more quickly, because there was no other footage at that point because the camera was broken.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Well, there it is. I mean, thank you so much, Jason, and we'll be in touch.
No problem. Always a pleasure.
Thank you.
And by the way, I love hearing your analysis, John, and Doctor as well. And Doctor, never let people say that you talk too long. I love it when you go on and on.
That's what he's here to do.
I could Bob.
Have a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
He's just got fantastic information about this, and really makes sense the way that he explains it. He's very very intelligent. So let me let's see here. Let me answer this question really quick. John, well, this is for you, John. John, could the sheriff's statement be strategic, albeit poorly executed, for instance, to give the culprits a false sense of security?
It's certainly possible if he is working in conjunction with the investigators. If there is an actual plan to do this, I mean, yes, it's certainly possible. It's the poorly executed part that you can have the best plan in the world, but if it's not well executed, you've undermined your own effort. But yes, it certainly could be. And you know what? We live in a world where anything can happen. It's even possible that it was effective, despite what appears to be, a dichotomy in messages.
Sure. Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you would agree with that as well, Dr. Gary. It's totally possible. I mean, I've thought too, but maybe just going about it in a different way than other people would, or, and like you say, John, most heads of agencies are trying to get off the force before, anything.
They're trying to get off the streets, and that's, I mean, look, and I'm painting with a broad brush.
Correct. Yeah.
But it's a broad brush
Yeah.
observed over 30 years.
No, it's good. All right, let's go ahead and Debbie's talking to somebody already.
Coming off.
Debbie, are you there?
Oh yes, no problem. Okay. Don't let her out. I love you too.
We love you too. Tell her we love her. Hey, Debbie, who is it that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Who's getting let out, Debbie?
My granddaughter, her boyfriend, their roommate who broke his ankle and is having surgery on Tuesday. So he's probably going to be staying with us for 2 weeks because he can't because he's got to keep his feet above his heart for 2 weeks because he's getting some screws. He hurt himself at work. He works at the airport and got caught because he got caught in between 2 luggage carts. And so, yeah, so he's got to go get a couple pins put in his ankle. So he'll be staying here.
We're old friends now.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
Where are you calling from, Debbie?
I am in Millington, Tennessee, originally from Oregon, got married, moved to Michigan, and now I'm here, and I'm much happier.
Very good. Who do you have a question for, and what's your question?
You know what? I am just going to throw out the craziest conspiracy theory because ever since I can't get it off my mind, and I know that there'd be a lot of kinks to it, because even Nancy's family would have to be in on it, but not because of the reason you're thinking.
I'm bracing
Okay.
myself for what you're about to say.
All right.
Yes. Well, let me tell you, ever since I saw
Wrap up
Chris
here.
interview,
Hold on. Let's do a quick checklist. Does it involve Masons?
no,
The Trilateral Commission?
And
No.
whatsoever? Jeffrey Epstein?
no Epstein. No, it's not that crazy.
Okay, cool.
Okay, we're ready.
Okay.
Amazing.
Okay. Well, this is what made it's popped into my mind, and I can't get it out of my head because it's that stupid. But it's okay. Chris interviewed on the interview room. He interviewed a cop there that's in the county. Did you see it? I think some of you might even been. No, it was he and Chris. Is it? And he works at the sheriff. No. They
Karen.
Yeah, it's one of the cops, one of the sheriff's people that was kicked into a room that is now 911. He doesn't even get to take 911 calls. He's been kicked down from a high level to garbage calls. Like remember when the stupid sheriff said, "Oh, well, even if you could think it was aliens, call us."
Right.
That's the kind of calls he's taken.
Gosh, it's hard to
And
imagine a police administrator doing that.
But the problem is it happens all over the department.
I was being sarcastic, honey.
Yes, I know. I'm telling you, that guy is off his rocker. But anyway, so what popped into my head, and I can't get it out, is okay. These cops that had years and years and years of experience, okay, they're all spread out doing stupid, ridiculous, dumb things because this guy is so arrogant. And this started about 5 or 6 years ago where they started just dismantling the department. And now you've got nobody that any kind of real experience besides street cop experience. Okay. This is my crazy theory. You're going to think it's crazy. And once I tell you, I'm going to let you hang up so you guys can talk about yourself. I don't feel like talking to you for an hour. I mean, I could talk to you guys all night. By the way, Dr. Gary, you look gorgeous like that. Kind of Sean Connery-ish looking. But anyway, he's got beautiful eyes. I never realized how beautiful his eyes are.
I didn't say that.
Oh my gosh. But anyway, okay, so here's my crazy conspiracy theory.
I hope it's going to be more sensical than what you just said.
No, you're gorgeous. Love you to death. I love your piano too. But even though it's electronic, I really thought you'd had a baby girl.
I'm a Mennonite working in the backyard with John on building a barn.
Really? Okay, here's my theory.
That's okay. We can turn it into an underground bunker very easily. Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. You might need it after this. Okay. All those great cops that had all that seniority and all that experience and all that training, they got sent to who knows where doing what stupid stuff they're doing. Took that 41 minutes to go in and talk to Nancy and say, we're going to place Barney Fife out on the front porch. We're going to bring Matlock in or whatever to the back. We're going to get a little bit of your blood, drip that around. And us good cops are
Like
going to let you live up the life you want while we watch these stupid cops that don't know how to do anything look for us. And she's in the background saying something like, yeah, go for it. I watched this happen. This has been in my community for years, and I know what happened. It was terrible what happened to you guys. But the family would have had to also be approached. This is my only problem. They'd also have to have been approached and said, this is going to happen. Act as sad as you want, but she's going to be fine. She's fine out there. She's absolutely fine. She is living it up, having a time of her life. That's my crazy theory.
So hold on a minute. I have to say, listening to you is fascinating because I'm enjoying it. So John and Josh, I think what she's saying now, correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like the theory is that this was done so that the police could sort of stick it to
embarrass the sheriff.
So
to reveal how poorly the agency is run. Can I explain before we go any further why that? And it's an inventive theory.
It sounds like something out of a book. It's interesting.
Yeah, the thing is this, is that first of all, the good cops that you're postulating would not do that. Second of all, by doing such a thing and acting in concert, they would all be committing felonies. There would be a conspiracy to create a false police report. And I've worked for bad chiefs and I've worked for a bad sheriff. It never once occurred to me that the way I would strike back at that person would be to commit a crime or stage a fake crime. So I just really, my experience with working with cops for 30 years with good cops is I just can't give any credence to the theory. So,
but I think listening to you, you're such a, I don't know how to explain it. You're such a sweet person. And I like the fun of you and how kind you are and all that. Mm-hmm. And it's nice that you're not exposed to enough of the awful crap that we are.
Yeah.
To realize how improbable this is, right? I mean, it's like I envy.
I didn't even think about they're not going to do a felony in order to do this. But no. It's just so. I did say it was a crazy theory. That was my first thing out of my mouth.
Oh, no. That's why we're joking with you. If we really thought that you were, we would not be speaking to you that way. So we're playing with the fact that you recognize that it's, that there's
absolutely crazy and stupid. I didn't even think about the felony part, but
I want to see a show where Matlock meets Barney Fife.
Well, you're watching one.
A great show waiting to happen.
Yeah,
they
but
have to get Steve Buscemi to play Barney Fife because we don't have Don Knotts.
But isn't Andy Griffith? Doesn't he become Matlock later?
Yes, actually he did. Yes, he was actually, now that you think, and I didn't even put that together. I just think I put Matlock together because somebody in the last week on one of your guys' shows talked about Matlock being his favorite. Remember that?
Yeah, that was
I think you should throw in William Conrad, Hervey Villachez, and maybe Christopher Hewitt as Mr. Belvedere. And just throw it all together. We'll have a fascinating show. And a couple of guest appearances by Urkel.
Well, and I said,
That's ridiculous.
I said that Matlock was my favorite TV. Was it detective character, lawyer, whatever he is?
Yeah.
And Dr. Gary asked me, John. He said, "Well, why is that?" And I said, "It's because he likes hot dogs."
Right. That's right. That's what it was.
And then Dr. Gary freaked out and said, "Because he likes hot dogs."
Well,
And I said, "It's because he likes hot dogs." And then Dr. Gary asked me, John. He said, "Well, why is that?" And I said, "It's because he likes hot dogs." And then
I guess it's a good reason to like it.
That's
Do you remember what Columbo liked?
He liked what besides his fat dog?
He had a quirk. He had a very interesting quirk where he was always fascinated by people's shoes. He would
Really, I
befriend-
don't remember that. I've got like seasons of it. I'll have to
No,
cut 'em off.
he would do like he would do this thing to sort of set a criminal that he was considering at ease by befriending them and so forth, and then he would ask these ridiculous questions like, "Oh, but where'd you get those floor chimes?" You know, and the person would go off guard, and they would start talking to him about the shoes. The other thing that his little quirk was that he used to hum "This Old Man." He used to hum that under or whistle. I thought that was hilarious, but what a great character. But I love that there's something so funny about
I enjoyed the call.
nature of your brain. It's just so much fun.
I enjoyed the
Well,
call.
my brain is so screwed up. I between my cancer and my seizure disorder, my brain's all over the place all the time.
And in all seriousness, are you okay?
Oh yeah, I'm fine. I've been fighting this cancer, but I'm on a carnivore diet, and it keeps it at bay as long as I don't cheat.
If
I don't give it carbs.
If you don't mind me asking, what kind of cancer are you battling?
It's metastatic breast cancer that has gone into my spine and my hips and my pelvis. So it's considered stage 4 because they can't do surgery. But I've been living with it for 6.5 years, almost 7 years actually. I think next month will be 7 years.
Has the doctor talked to you about your prognosis? I mean, are you going to be okay?
He said I can live 10 minutes or 10 years. You don't know and I tell my grandkids that because if this vertebrae breaks again, I've had my T3 crushed 2 times. I've lost 2.5 inches in height because of the compression fractured in 2 places, or in one place twice, a year apart, which was kind of weird. But anyway, no, I'm in great spirits. I'm ready to go. If he wants to take me, he will. I don't, I have no problem with it. I think it'll make people around me sad, which makes me sad. But I'm doing fine. I'm doing
well.
fine.
I think it's I know this is totally off topic, but I have to tell you that it is one of those good opportunities to emphasize to women in the audience the importance of early detection.
Yeah, and I'd had mammograms and stuff, but what was really stupid is both my grandmother and my mother and my grandmother died of breast cancer, and it never even dawned on me that I would get it.
Well, it's an important thing, because it's one of those things where a lot of people don't discover it until it's a ways along, and a lot of they scare you, and there are false positives, and you get checked, but it's better to err on the side of caution, obviously. But I really, really appreciate your sharing that, and it makes the playfulness of your tone all the more beautiful.
I loved your call. I honestly did. I thought it was.
It really, it sort of drives home that how. The bravery and the depth of your character and the depth of your faith and and it's a beautiful thing, because I have to tell you, as somebody who lost way too many people to cancer, including my father, I don't know what to say about it except to say that I loathed it. I loathed that disease with every fiber of my being.
It's just cruel, and the problem with cancer is everybody, at least in the medical field, should know that cancer thrives on sugar. It thrives on carbohydrates. It thrives. I was doing great. I was having no growth. My oncologist was on board with my carnivore diet. Everything was great. I went back to Michigan to work on a house that we were getting ready for market. I was gone for 7 weeks back in Michigan. And my husband's still there, coming back and forth. He's here now in Tennessee for a few weeks. But anyway, we were working there. I mean, while I was there with my soft bones, he dropped a 40-foot truss on my head off the forks of a bobcat. And I never saw him got off that bobcat so fast. But I was like, I'm fine. So these soft bones, I get hit with a 40-foot truss, and I just get back up, and keep right on working. Well, while we were working, we were not paying attention to what we were eating. We were eating everything. Comfort food was sugar-free pudding. I'm thinking, sugar-free pudding, how can it be bad? Well, guess what? Guess what that's thickened with? Carbs, 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 milk, milk, carbs, 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 carbs. Eating Subway sandwiches, because we were working so hard. I was not taking the time to cook. And I came back after 7 weeks, and that dang cancer in that T9 where it started once it changed had grown 3 millimeters in 7 weeks.
Well, I mean, look, I don't want to, sound shrinky when I say this, but it sort of starts to make sense that the theme of your phone call is, mistrust of authority and the people that are supposed to
Oh my
be
gosh.
in charge,
Well,
taking care of things. I mean, that one sense is a theme that you feel a little burned, but I think that I just want to say before you go that I really mean it when I say not as a pleasantry, but honestly from the heart, I will keep you in my prayers. I really will.
Me too.
Absolutely.
I appreciate that. I tell you, I'm on the prayer rolls in temples all over the world. I've got friends all over the country and all over, and because I'm LDS, I'll tell you that I'm LDS, and we believe in the afterlife. I'm not afraid to die. I've never been afraid to die. I'm ready if he wants me tomorrow, if he wants me in 10 or 20 years, whatever. It doesn't matter. I've done what I can do. I feel comfortable with myself. The Lord's always had my back. I can say a prayer to say, I've lost my keys, Heavenly Father, where is it? And as soon as I say, in Jesus' name, amen, he says, go look in the center console of your car. And sure enough, that's where they were. Never left my keys in the center console of a car. But I did that particular time. I lose my cane. Father in heaven, where could have I done it? Go check under the bed. Okay, I go check under the bed. There's my cane. He's had my back my whole life, but through this journey for sure.
There you go. I guess you've proven the point that you're not crazy, right?
Well, some people think everybody LDS is crazy, but hey, whatever.
No, I don't mean that. I mean because we were teasing you before about the idea, that you were presenting, which sounded an awful lot like
I wasn't teasing.
Subway.
You and John were the ones teasing. I'm gonna.
And that's okay. I tease myself. It's just like for some reason, gotta get this off my chest.
But I'm telling you, I am a magnet for people who have ideas like that. I will sit on the subway, right? I could be reading a book, okay? It's like there's a blinking sign on my head that I would be interested to hear whatever idea is passing through your mind. And invariably, something like this. Hey, mister. I'm like, yeah, what is it? Beautiful day, isn't it? Yeah, it is. This whole tunnel is laced up with bombs. Okay, that's great. Anyway, I'm going to go back to my book now. It's like a person with an idea like that. They are talking to me. I don't know what it is. I'm telling you.
Dr. Brucato, you've just got this face that just says,
I don't know.
Just want to talk to you.
Well, but it's always set up that it's going to be a perfectly average conversation, and then the zinger. It's always, you know what I'm saying? It's always like that, and then it's like the connecting of dots that is very peculiar. Like, honest to God, I had a person say to me one time in the subway. There was a woman sitting with a baby carriage, and the person tapped me and said, "This is a weird thing to say, but you think that baby is real?" So I said, "What are you talking about?" I think I was like listening to headphones or something. So I'm like, "What? You think that baby up there is real?" So I said, "What do you think it is? What do you think it might be?" So the person gives me this elaborate story. It looks like one of those dolls you get, like those dolls with like an old-fashioned outfit, like a plastic head doll. But I don't know why they're pushing it around the baby carriage. I'm a little freaked out. So I said, "Listen to me. It's crying. The baby is crying. Do you think it's a ventriloquism act? Like, it's a real child." And then I just put the headphones back on. And I said to myself, I got to pull the ripcord and get it.
Let me off.
I love
before or after you got robbed by the children?
Oh, just stop with that, because that really happened.
Gabby, I'm going to drop you down. We got other calls. I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for calling.
But
thank you, Debbie.
Do you attract them to people who have stories like that?
Me? Oh my God, yes. Standing in line at a restaurant and have somebody turn around, look at me and go, "Do you think that that's really food in there?"
That sounds like
Or I remember traveling with my wife once. We were traveling to a teddy bear show on Interstate 81, and we stopped at a rest stop in northern Pennsylvania, and getting out of the car. And apparently, I still look like a cop. Because I get out of the car and I've got issue item 1 each, deranged street person living in their car who begins screeching at me that I can't make them move from the rest stop, that they have a right to be there.
Oh, Lord.
And my poor wife is sitting in the car because she's used to this by now. God bless her soul. I wonder what she makes of this in heaven. So I'm walking away from this guy, and he's following me into the restroom, explaining stuff. It's just, yes, I've got one of those faces where, although I've never had anybody ask me if they thought the baby was real.
Oh, I'll never forget that, because I found myself engaging in a Socratic method of saying, but it's crying. What would be the mechanism? And then I realized I was engaging it. I was engaging in it, and then I just like put the music back on. Like, I'm done.
Yeah, a lot of that is your fault.
Because I really care about people. That's the problem.
No, I'm not saying you don't, but I'm not saying that you don't care about people, but I'm saying that I know you do, but I'm saying that a lot of it's your fault because you have this inquisitive mind, and you're like, I wonder why they think that baby isn't real. When if somebody were to say that to me, I would have put my hood on, tightened my strings, put the music on, and put my head down and said, that person's not real. I'm not talking to them.
Right. Now, in fairness, the baby did look a little bit like Winston Churchill.
Oh my God.
Not the looker of I mean, there was something sham-like about one thought of basket case. But the thing is that at the same, it looked a little like Winston Churchill with the big bald head and the jowls and I could see someone thinking it wasn't a real baby, but it was indeed.
Winston Churchill.
Yes, it was a little Churchill-esque. Yes.
Right.
Anyway, in all seriousness, we're having a little fun because it's such a heavy topic, and I loved the caller.
I thought it was great.
I just loved it. I loved her spirit. I loved the fact that in the face of tragedy, she's got a joy and a faith like that. I just think she's terrific. I loved her.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking of everybody else, instead of herself. She's a terrific person. So just needed to say that. Now, moving along. Who else is on the line?
Janet, you're on. Where are you calling from, Janet?
Texas.
Oh, I think you've called before, haven't you?
State that I love, madly in love with the state of Texas.
She's the one that hates Texas.
Yes, I remember her. How are you, Janet?
I'm good. And I never used the word hate.
Right. Sorry.
I said it. I was embarrassed, but I'm not anymore. I love it. Love it.
Oh, wow. That only took 7 days?
Yeah. And a lot of comments.
I told you that Texas is a heavily populated state and that there was going to be a lot of people watching that, are from there. Now, do I disagree with you? Not really.
So anyway, I have two things about the Guthrie case. The first one is I think the timeline is off. And the reason I think it is because I've heard more than one medical expert say that the pacemaker only tries to link with the iWatch one time every 24 hours. And it's usually around 2 a.m. or so. And if that is actually true, then it doesn't have any significance with that being the time that she left the building, so to speak. It would just be the time that it tried to link to the iWatch.
Okay.
So,
is there anything else bother you about the timeline?
Pardon me?
Anything else bother you about the timeline?
No, just that I don't think they necessarily were there for 40 minutes.
I've heard that as well. That what some people believe, but
it's pretty confusing.
What's that?
It's pretty confusing.
Well, John, I mean, like you said, the time is of the essence. If you're kidnapping somebody, if that's your entire notice,
if your entire purpose is being there to abduct someone, which I'm not convinced that's the motive, but let's argue the hypothesis that the purpose of the suspects was to abduct Ms. Guthrie. You want to get in and out because every moment you spend increases the opportunity for being discovered. Because we're going to, again, let's hypothesize. There's a suspect vehicle there. On the off chance that a neighbor's up or a sheriff's unit is patrolling the neighborhood and they don't recognize the vehicle. I mean, I worked for a sheriff's department in the desert in California. And I worked in neighborhoods that were similar to this. I worked around Palm Springs. And I knew at nighttime which vehicles belonged and which vehicles didn't. So if you're a criminal planning on abducting someone, you're going to want to make the grab and get in and out. So I just don't understand what the time element would be. We can't. I don't think we could. It would be safe to speculate that there was such physical resistance from Ms. Guthrie that they fought her for 40 minutes. The time element just doesn't make sense.
And John, if let's just say for the sake of argument, you're one of these people who thinks there might have been a sexual element. Well, why do sexually motivated offenders who tend to work alone, statistically, why would they remove a person from the home? Well, one reason would be to play out a fantasy with them somewhere that is more private. Okay? All right. Well, then why do you need to spend 40 some odd minutes with the person first? That's very odd. Unless you are telling them, I need you to take this outfit with you and that thing with you and get it all together and then we're going to go somewhere. I don't think so. And the second possibility is they're deceased. You've done something to them and they have died and you're taking them with you to eliminate evidence. I just think that there's something about what went on in that 40 some odd minutes, if it is true that there was 40 some odd minutes, that is going to be the key to the entire story, because it's an extra, totally unnecessary. So it means there was some conversation, there was some demand, there was some, and that is going to be the key to the whole thing, because why take the risk of being there that long?
Yeah. You have speed and urgency are the order of the day. Even if it was just a burglar going in to, pillage the belongings, it's in and out. They don't spend a lot of time there. So the time, I will agree that the time element, I'm not wedded to that there's 40 minutes that because we don't know. And I saw a comment there about, was there ransacking in the house? We don't know. And that's one of the good things that they have kept quiet. That's sort of case-specific information that as a detective, I would want to keep quiet so that if we do find a suspect, it's something that either the suspect and we are going to know and nobody else, that they won't have gotten it from the media.
Well, now, something is certainly fishy. Yeah, go ahead.
I did see comments somewhere from somebody that had allegedly been in a kidnap situation in their own home, and they did speak with the potential kidnapper for 30 or 40 minutes, trying to negotiate and get out of the situation.
Well, of course, because in a situation where there's an authentic abduction for money, you'll want to communicate and rapidly get it taken care of. I've said earlier, on other shows, that when you look at statistics on authentic abductions for ransom, generally it's 24 to 48 hours with proof of life that you are the real deal that has abducted a person and has them and wants money, and within 7 days it is wrapped up.
Yeah.
So I think it's fair to say they didn't have proof of life.
Yeah, and the cops may not even be called in such an instance.
Yeah,
You know,
but I think, John, there is no proof of life.
No, there hasn't been any proof of life, and I'm not convinced that there has been a meaningful ransom demand.
Well, exactly. So where did the ransom thing come from? What proof is there that this was for ransom? If you take off the table all the TMZ and whatever, and I don't see in the Hawthorne thing even a person demanding ransom.
No, nor do I. I see somebody asking for Bitcoin.
And implying that there had been previous discussion about Bitcoin that it was affected.
Yeah, that's the inference, is that there's been previous discussions about this.
So, I mean, we don't know, but it certainly seems strange. So I guess if you take that off the table, then the ransom thing is just something that the public is run with from that having been thrown out there. But there's no evidence of that.
Yeah.
Not at all. And also, I can't get over nobody coming for $1 million.
Yeah. $1.2 million. I've known people that give you up for $50.
Well,
That's true.
Yeah, no, I know you're not. I know you're telling the truth because I'm sure you worked Vice.
American criminals are all discount Judases for the most part.
Yeah, 30 pieces.
$1.2 million and nobody's giving it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Remember that movie Pee-wee's Big Adventure? Which I love. That one of the funniest parts is when he wants his bike back so badly, he goes on the radio to offer $1 million reward. And Dottie says to him, "Where are you going to get that kind of money?" And he says, "It's easy. Obviously, whoever calls is the one who stole it, so they don't deserve the award." And he starts laughing maniacally.
Right.
But it's sort of hilarious because, I mean, it's like, who else is going to know?
That's kind of the point of this is that, and you know, those people that were saying we have information, remember they were sending to TMZ, they go, "We have information, send us 1 Bitcoin." And then they go, "We'll do you one better. $1.2 million," and then nobody comes forward with it, which means they called the people's bluffs who were sending these fake things to TMZ. And you would think that after, I don't know how long the reward has been out there now, but that the people that would be able to collect on the 1.2 million are the people that are implicated in the crime. Ta-da! You know, so
I don't know. That felt to me like a trap, putting the 1.2 million.
Well, I think a lot of it was calling out a bluff too.
And it was interesting. I could see a world in which it was a clever thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, are there any other callers? I mean,
yeah, we have a
and I had a second question if we have time for it.
Go ahead.
There was last week, I think there was an entire show dedicated to comparing this case to a case in California for Nancy Woodruff. I was wondering if John was familiar with that case and if he had any opinion about it.
Was that on Banfield?
I'm sorry, Josh, what?
Was that on Banfield's show?
Yes, it was. It was. And it actually was quite a comparison because it was, well, she wasn't quite as elderly as Guthrie was, but it was an SA case, and the perpetrator accidentally killed her because she tried to dial 911. So he threw her in the back of his pickup truck and left a trail of bloody sheets along the highway because they fell off the truck. But it took them 7 months to solve the case. They had DNA with no matches in any system, and they had suspects that they eliminated because of no match to the DNA with the suspects. And eventually they got a, what do you call it, geofencing? It was a new technology at the time. And the guy had turned his cell phone on briefly while he was in her bedroom. And so they were able to trace it by his phone having been turned on. And he confessed when they got him. He had no criminal background whatsoever. He confessed, and he took them to her remains, which they never would have found if they had not been led there.
Interesting.
I don't know about that case, to be honest with you. I spend very little time other than when I'm doing the appearances here and on the interview room. Mostly my time is I'm writing, so I'm not involved in a lot of the current cases. I can tell you this though, the comment about how the offender, the first time he'd never had no criminal history. I'm going to make a suggestion that that comment probably needed to be amended to he hadn't been arrested, because somebody just doesn't one day decide that they're going to commit that level of SA that then escalates into a savage attack. There tends to be a lot of prodromal behavior in advance. Generally, it begins with indecent exposure, prowling. They work their way up to that. And so it would be, you would see in this guy's background. And I've worked, I worked a case involving the abduction of a woman in her late 60s. And so I'm acquainted with these cases, but they are not very common. The fact that we can remember them is because they tend to be so rare. Although I certainly hope they're not going to become more common these days.
Yeah, same.
Well, in this particular case, he was stepping out on his wife quite frequently and not home for the evening. So he was being very active in those realms. And he was a contractor. She had many contractors working on her property. He was one of them. And she brought him, I don't know, a piece of pie or a sandwich or something. And he considered it flirtation.
Oh.
And so he went back that night and things went terribly wrong.
That's terrible. Well, yeah, I guess everybody was saying that, well, not everybody, but people in the chat were saying 2020 aired that story last night. So I'm sure you could check that out if you guys are interested in that. Janet, thank you so much for your call. I hope Texas treats you better.
Thank y'all. Have a good one.
Good night.
All right, let's move to Autumn. Autumn, go ahead. Where are you calling from?
Indiana.
Indiana, or the Hoosier State.
Yes, I talked to you last week. Was it?
Yep. I don't know many Indiana callers, but I know you.
Yeah. Yes. So my comments are not necessarily about Nancy Guthrie per se, but some people were in the chat asking about how to be more safety conscious. And I'm not a security professional, but in my work with I'm a defense contractor. So I work with the military and people in the military. So I've sat with a lot of security people a lot. And one thing that they recommend is if you get a security system, they always want to put their sign in your yard. I have ADT security or Simply Safe or whatever. They said that does half the work for any potential burglar. So they recommend either taking the sign down, putting up a generic, I have home security sign. If you have to have a sign, switch company signs with a friend or neighbor, because the people who are going to target you are doing research in advance. So they're going to look up how to defeat your security system before they come to your house. Another thing that they've recommended is different types of cameras. So, trail cams, the Blink, the Nest, all those types of cameras, have them at different vantage points, some up high, some down low. So if someone ducks their head, their face can still be captured. Just place them strategically, have some in the open for deterrence, so people know that they're on camera, and have some hidden. So that I don't know what you guys think about that, but those were just some tips that I wanted to share that I've learned.
That's right.
We're not. I have to ask. We're in Indiana.
Crane. So Crane, Indiana actually has the third largest naval base in the world.
I had no idea. Actually, one of my stepson lives in Indiana, and my old partner from my street cop days lives in Indiana. He left there. He left Southern California and moved to Indiana. So.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, the cost of living here is great. You know, we don't have hurricanes, we have tornadoes. It is a very 2A friendly state, so Second Amendment friendly.
Oh yeah, my friend loves it. My stepson loves it there.
I love it too. But I'm born and raised here. I'm sorry.
I'm done with snow. They would say, "Hey, come to move to Indiana," and I'm a Southern California boy, and I've lived in Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley for 22 years, and I've decided for the final portion of my life, I'm going to do without the white stuff.
Yeah, I hate that. That is one thing that I really hate about Indiana is the snow and it's 70 degrees tomorrow and it's going to be 0 degrees in a couple days after that.
Well, it sounds like you've covered all the security questions there. I mean, there's nothing I could intelligently add to that.
Thank you. I appreciate that feedback too, because I've always wondered from a law enforcement perspective what you guys would think about those tips. And then if people can't have a dog for your lifestyle or whatever, you can always do like overnights with shelter dogs or foster. A dog is always a great deterrent. And if you're allergic, if you can have fowl like guineas or chickens, guineas raise the alarm very quickly if someone comes on your property. So depending on where you live.
You could also put a sign that says beware of dog, but not actually have one.
Right. And so there are some comments too that if you put those signs up legally and you have a dog that may bite, some people say that you open yourself up to a lawsuit that you knowingly have a dangerous animal. So there are some different perspectives on that legally. But I prefer people to think that I have several dogs. I have rescued mastiffs for over 20 years. And I prefer people to think that I have 14 mastiffs and every single one of them is going to tear your arm off.
You mentioned the fowl. I've got to mention this. Do you know that the city of Rome was saved in like 300 BC by the geese that patrolled the Celts had surrounded the early city of Rome, and they were going to take the top hill, and it was going to be a secret night attack, and it was the geese that were part of the temple precincts that alerted to the Celtic attackers coming over the wall that allowed them to put the attack off. So geese.
That's amazing.
2,500 years they've been using them.
They're very territorial, and I grew up working on farms and stuff, and you don't want to mess with a goose.
Oh no.
They're more vicious than any dog, and I've been on busts where we've busted up, fight rings and drug busts where we've had to confiscate animals, because I also do animal rescue in my part-time. And I will tell you, I will run faster from a goose than from any dog.
Right. Well, the moral of the story is if you see a foul goose, duck.
You get a feather in your hat over that?
Thank you for the call. Appreciate
John,
it.
You were attacked by a turkey, weren't you?
Yeah, yes, I was. I was attacked by a turkey.
And you pulled out a blunderbuss and shot at it like a pilgrim?
No, but I did sort of search for it, like at the end of the gulch, just kind of looking over, and I had a
gulch.
Yeah, I had a bow and arrow from Big Five that I was going to take a shot at it with.
Oh my God, I can't. All right, that's terrifying. Actually.
All right, Mab, go ahead, Mab.
Scary. Who is it?
Mab.
Hello.
How are you?
Oh, Mab, who has the show?
Yes, Mab
Master is in the house.
We got the Mabster in the house.
First question. I've heard of Churchill babies and teddy bear shows. I want to see if you guys are all real.
Yup.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Okay, I got it. Question for Dr. Gary.
Oh boy.
What do you think about serial gerontophiliac? Gerontophiliac.
Oh, gerontophilia?
Yes.
Or serial gerontophilia. Tell me how to spell it. I want to make sure that I'm saying the right.
Gerontophilia.
Gerontophilia is the fancy word for a person who is paraphilically sexually attracted only to elderly people.
Yeah. So if we have a serial.
Oh, you're saying serial gerontophilia. Okay.
Correct.
I don't think so. You mean in terms of the Nancy Nancy Guthrie case? I don't think so, because for the reasons we said earlier, that, and also you would see a spate of unsolved crimes involving elderly people in a geographic area where you would start going, this victimology links these people. I mean,
you might not if he's a truck driver.
No, but you'd at least see a pattern across a highway or a pattern across the country. There's no emerging data, unless it's not being reported in the news, of a whole spate of attacks on elderly people like this, and particularly taken out of the home, and there's probably a period of casing the place and all that kind of thing. It's a very disturbing idea, but gerontophilia is very, very rare.
Yeah.
Very rare, and combine it with sexual, with what probably would be sexual assault and or murder, in addition to just being attracted to the elderly, is you're talking about pretty low probability. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you're talking about about multiple paraphilic disorders mixed in one person. And, I have to tell you, if this turned out to be a serial gerontophile, you'd be talking about somebody that would be one for the books.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, I'm aware of like 3 cases historically that involved sexual predators that like exclusively were interested in the elderly.
Well, this Nancy Woodrum, Nancy Woodrum case was one of those that this man was attracted to the elderly.
I mean, it does happen, but it's profoundly rare. But then on top of it, you're talking about the possibility of abducting and killing and so forth. Yeah. Then you start getting into a whole other thing, right? Because people forget that. Like, for example, there are a lot of people who are, let's say, attracted to underage people and have that pathology. But then you need, in order to be one who kills them, there's another pathology on top of it. Like, then you've got 2 rare things going on, right? Inappropriate attraction and being someone who, is killing them. So, I mean, think about what would need to go into the probability of a serial gerontophile who takes people, at least one person, out of the home and may be responsible for them being dead. And you're talking about a pretty unlikely situation. I think it is
100 million.
Did not figure into this.
Oh, I just thought like 1 in 100 million or something.
It would be pretty low. I wouldn't bet the house on it. Let's put it that way. But I think that where I think her age might have figured into the victimology would be vulnerability, the possibility that there was like a will involved or some financial arrangement, things like that. That she would be an easy target. Maybe she had very limited, restricted life. That kind of thing. But otherwise, it's a very odd victimology. Very odd. And such an easy victim that everything that went into this looks like way too much work.
So I've been
I mean,
following this case pretty closely.
how easy it is? Yeah, but I'm saying, how easy would it be to take an 84-year-old woman or
Easy.
to kill an 84-year-old woman?
Very
Right. Now,
easy.
in your case, in your work, John, I'm sure you saw a lot of cases of people who invaded homes and killed or attacked elderly people, right?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say that it was frequent,
But I don't. I mean, it's
but
not
I've seen them. Yeah,
right. But they were targeted because they were
There
old
were-
people who
yeah.
were vulnerable, right? So that happens, but they're not gerontophiles.
Right.
Well, and you said something important also, which is that this just wouldn't suddenly spring up and be, a black swan event. There would be other events that we would see. And departments, you mentioned if they were a truck driver, we do actually, I mean, my day began with going over bulletins from all over the country.
Yeah, right.
And so, an MO like that would stick out like a sore thumb. You would jump on that in a second if there was something that was similar to it.
All right.
So I'm inclined to agree with that with Gary's assessment that it's unlikely. I'm not saying it's impossible, but
Very improbable. Yeah.
yeah.
But I've been following this case pretty closely from the beginning, and of course,
Yeah, and you're a very bright person. You've called before. You have a lot of very
Yes.
interesting thoughts about things.
So
But
I've
this is one of
done,
these things where experience tells you that it's improbable.
yeah, I've done a lot of investigation on this case.
Yeah.
Along with
I know.
following it very closely. And this Derek Colella person
Mm-hmm.
that sent the first ransom, or the first 2 texts and a phone call to Annie and Tommaso asking for the Bitcoin. It turns out they frequent the same venues for the band that Early Black that Tommaso's in. And this David Colella's, AKA Secret Mutilator.
Mm.
We get into some pretty wild stuff here. And the connections are really crazy because they go to Luke Daly, to Kayla Day Hubie, and her husband, William Hubie, who was arrested for human trafficking from Mexico to Tucson, and was running from Border Patrol and killed an 80-year-old woman in the process and ran off into the desert with a broken ankle. That's Kayla Day Hubie's.
Where did you get that information?
I did all the research.
But I mean, is that all on the internet or something, or is that
It's all
something
documented. You can look it up on the internet and you can see that they play at the same venues. And mostly it's this fetish community.
disturbing?
Fetish ball, the Tucson fetish ball.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Disturbing.
I've heard that. I never looked it up or anything, but I've heard that exact thing, what you're saying. Yeah. And it would be crazy if it was just happenstance that he reached out to them. It's
Clearly,
think
they've
it's
been in previous communication.
What's that?
Previously, they'd been in previous communication. I mean, we know that.
Right.
But beyond that, I really would be reluctant to speculate.
Right.
I've got a pretty good case to be made for about a whole group of Annie, Tommaso, Secret Mutilator, DJ Mojito, Kayla Day Hubie, William Hubie. Those are all my suspects that are all tied together. Took a lot of research to get them all tied together, but they are. And I just haven't heard about it from the mainstream media or any of the bigger platforms.
Well, let's put it this way. If there are connections like that can be pieced together, I'm sure law
Yeah.
enforcement has put
The
that.
FBI would know that, I hope.
If that's true, but they would know. Let's put it that. They might not be advertising it, but they would be looking at it. Let's put it
And
that
there
way.
would be a
Sure,
reason
they
why they
do.
aren't advertising it.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's just say, if there's truth to it, that would be borne out. I mean, I don't know it to have any, but it's interesting.
Very, very close connections. Same place, same venues over a number of years.
Odd. It is odd.
It's wild, but
Yes.
I'm sure the FBI knows all this. But Annie and Tommaso give me kind of a creepy feeling. They haven't said word one publicly. I mean, we've even got Luke Daly giving interviews, but Annie and Tommaso, nothing.
Is he the one that did the interview with the New York Times?
He did the interview with Brianna Whitney.
Oh,
Right.
okay. Yeah. Okay. So that was the guy that was detained. And then I think it was the teacher that was in the band with Tommaso that was being accused. He did I believe he did a interview with the New York Times. And that, his school sticks by him and all that. But anyway, it's all very interesting. Matt, thank you for the call, man. I appreciate it. It's nice hearing from you, man.
Right. And I think we have to do our due diligence. It is very important that we emphasize that
I'm sure the FBI is aware of all this stuff, just not out in the open.
But I'm saying, to do our due diligence, we have to say, because it would be irresponsible if we didn't, that the sheriff has come out and said that he has essentially cleared
and then he uncleared them in an interview with Brittany.
But we have to. I just think we must say that, because otherwise it gives the impression that we're making an accusation, and we just can't.
We can't
John,
make any accusation until we have a case. The
I
problem is,
just think we don't want to be reckless. You know what I mean? We have to do that. Yeah.
Prosecute a case like this to a jury. You've got real problems now with nanos releasing the crime scene and all that stuff.
Yeah, but that
Anyway.
that's still far down the road. But I agree with you. It's one battle at a time, unfortunately.
All right. Well, it's nice talking to you, gentlemen.
Of course.
Thank you for the good question.
And Josh, congratulations on hitting 44,000.
44,000. Thank you guys so much. Yeah. We have we're gonna do two more calls, and then we have something special at the end that we discussed earlier that very important that I want to get to as well. So let's go ahead and do these two calls, and then all right, Gail, where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Gail. I'm calling from outside of Lexington, Kentucky.
All right.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. I just have a question. I have never heard anybody talk about this. I hope whoever did this to that poor lady is not listening. Why am I terrified of that creepy crawly photos on the patio? But every man I have heard put him down, say he's a dummy. He might be all those things. I mean, we'll never know until we know, right? But I see that guy, and I even have your book, Dr. Gary, and I even looked at reviewing it, just kind of seeing where he might be as a rando. Is he like a 14 or a 15 on the scale? Well, I see that guy like touching down.
Who do you mean? Which person?
The patio, the creepy crawly on the video on her. If I saw that, and I, by the way, married to a retired traffic homicide detective, so I'm pretty okay in my home. But if I saw that at 2:30 in the morning as a woman just sleeping alone, I would be peeled off the ceiling and instantly know that I would know that this is an absolute terrifying thing that's going to happen in my life. And I do not understand why nobody's scared of this guy. I am terrified of this guy. And I'm not in Arizona, I just told you. But can you explain to me why men do not see the danger like I do? Or am I just too sensitive? I don't understand.
I think I want John to answer this.
Okay.
You've got to be able to sort out what's a reasonable fear. And I can understand, yes, if you saw that person on your porch, yes, it would be a frightening experience. But as we've stressed before, this tends to be an extraordinarily rare occurrence. And there are other factors that would lead us to think that Ms. Guthrie was specifically targeted. Would you say that the same circumstances apply to you, that there is that somebody would target your house? Do you think?
I'm not that exciting. I'm not.
That somebody would target your.
She said she's not that exciting. No.
Yeah. Well, and this is the point. You need to be aware. I mean, look, I live out in the country, and I just take the normal precautions, and I'm a big fan of the Second Amendment. But I would just suggest be cautious, be aware of your surroundings, but I don't know that level of fear is warranted. Perhaps attentiveness to your surroundings. So if you're, I just don't know what else to add to that other than this is an extraordinarily rare event.
I just don't know why we think he's dumb. I don't know.
I don't think that. I think that his actions that we witnessed on the porch looked dumb from a criminal standpoint. The gun, the way the gun was holstered, which
Flower.
The flower,
The flowers to try and move the camera.
He just so look. I think that there's a couple things going on here. I think that there's a little bit of luck going on with these perps that they haven't been caught yet or identified. I think there's a bit of that. And I think that they took some precautions as well. And it's made it very difficult to sort of lock something down. Finding a missing person, and John, you can speak to this better than anybody, is so difficult. It is a hard thing to do. People think that, somebody goes missing, you should be able to find them. That's just not how it works. A lot of the times, not only are you looking for a needle in a haystack, you got to find the haystack first. And until you even know where to, I'm confused as all get out that there's not search parties being organized. I don't understand it. I hope that there's a reason for it. I hope they have a reason for it, but it doesn't make any sense right now that there's no organized search parties. But I hope that there's a reason for it, but I don't know the answer to that. And Gail,
search
thank you so much for your phone.
Thank you so much for listening.
Oh,
I
and
just wondered.
Gail, I didn't answer your question, and I know we're trying to rush, so I'm going to give you the quick version. But the fact of the matter is there's not enough information to answer the placement on the scale, because as you remember, we'd have to know if there was a serial nature, if there was murder, if there was torture, if there was sexual assault, if there was it's not possible to say. So we basically just don't have enough information at this time. We don't even know what they did. We don't know if it was an abduction, if they murdered someone, so you're left with inadequate information to move up the scale. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's like put it on hold, and it'll be a fascinating conversation when we have the information we need. That's where you could use the algorithm that I made. That's at the end of part 1, where you could sort of plug in a person and see where they fall, and you'll see you don't have enough info. But I think it's very clever of you to sniff a 14, because that's pretty good guess. But that's good. Okay. So keep up the good work.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Gail, so much. And then let's go.
I like her accent.
Yeah, I did too. She was great.
Kentucky's
Why not walk? it. Where are you calling from?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Sure can.
Oh, hey Josh. Oh, hey Dr.
Hey,
Brucato and
what
John.
do we call you?
My name is so unique. That's why I just use my screen name. But the reason why I'm called Why Not Walk It is because I'm a graduate student, and I study effective geography, or Dr. Brucato, that would be environmental psychology in your field.
Sure.
And I want to see how walking and sunlight walking may help you reestablish your rhythms in this socially accelerated world. So
Interesting.
that's what I go with. But I actually, my topic that I wanted to ask you guys was related to a question that just flashed up on the screen a minute ago. And I understand that there are lots of unknowns in this. The thing, though, that still makes no sense to me, unless we consider that this really was meant to be a kidnapping, to me, is removing Nancy from the scene. I just don't buy the trying to remove evidence. I think it's riskier to take her with you and to transfer evidence and DNA. And so from that perspective, I just wonder, what would the cause of moving, what would the motivation be?
Well, really quick, when you say that, you would think that it's riskier to do that, but it would also be pretty risky to leave a dead body in a house with DNA on it, under the nails, around the neck and the hair, things like that. Nobody, you can't examine what you don't have.
No, I understand. I understand what you're saying, but think about in this environment where you have a quiet neighborhood, even removing her from the house and getting her to a vehicle, I still feel like there's more risk that's involved there. That's me. I'm not a law enforcement.
Yeah, but did you see the guy at the door? Did he look to you like he was weighing risk?
Well, that's what I was going to ask you earlier, Dr. Brucato. I put a question in the chat. So it seems like you would say that this was organized to begin with. There was some planning that went involved, whether it's one or many individuals. And
Certain.
to an extent, he was somewhat organized as he walked up to the doorway. Now, there's a lot of speculation about what's in his pocket. It could very likely be a vape, just a THC vape. He may have taken a few hits, the thing sticking out of his pocket. But could it be that just from him, not being completely sober, that he moves to more disorganized? And does that explain maybe an accident happening in the house that caused him to kind of sit there and try to figure out what to do for 40 minutes? Would that influence his?
It would have left a lot more chaotic scene.
Mm-hmm.
The officers would not have thought it was some kind of missing person situation.
Yep.
It would have been a mess all over the place. And there's a little bit of a mess, but it almost looks like intentional to throw you off, like leaving one door open and a little bit of sprinkled blood and whatever. That's why I've been very bothered by that. It almost looks like somebody trying to give the impression of chaos more than authentic chaos. I mean, I have seen, as a person who has always specialized in the overlap between, psychosis and serious mental illness and violence, scenes that are chaotic and disorganized have been, something I've spent a lot of time looking at. So being consulted on things and so forth. There is a special kind of way that this organization looks that you just can't fake. I mean, I don't know how to explain it except to say, like, when it's real.
Yeah.
It's you know what I'm saying, John? It's like
the minute you walk in, you don't mistake it for anything else, because the person who's trying to stage the scene is incapable of being in that mindset.
Right. It's like a person trying to fake thought disorder.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. It's like I suppose somebody could, but they'd have to be pretty good. And so, I have to tell you, I think there was a little disorganization, but I don't think it was due to pressure or anything like that, because this was an oddly calm, comfortable person.
Right.
Like a lot of time in there. I think it's more likely that, lacking empathy and imagination and intellect, he didn't anticipate what was really going to go on when he got in there. It's a little Kohlberger-esque, right? Where you just fail to imagine that things aren't going to go the way you fantasize. And I think that's more what you're saying. And I mean, the thing is, like, think of Kohlberger, for example. Did things fall apart? Yeah, but he seems to have been disturbingly able to do what he wanted to do, even under that pressure.
Yeah, he very careful and didn't leave much at all.
Right. That's what makes me wonder if something happened. I mean, the other thing is that maybe she did pass away. I do think there were two people. I think it's very likely, like Chris has stated, that someone went in through the patio, which would be where the man would be looking if he were looking to the right when we're watching him on the video around the corner of the house. And did they have to call the chef and say, oh, do we still take her? She's not alive anymore. We have no proof of life.
Gary, you got this chef thing. Like, people are.
Yes.
I mean, it's
You know, I know. I love it. Isn't it great?
It has
There's a few things like that in various cases that I've said that have caught on like that, and no one realizes where they start. It's very funny.
I've heard it several places.
Into the public. Yes. What happened?
I've heard it several places now.
What can I tell you? I cooked up a good, but I think it's interesting how you think. I like the logicality, of your mind and all that.
John, his puns suck, by the way. His puns suck.
Whose puns?
Yours.
That's why I like them. That's the point.
Well, I have to give John credit.
That they're bad. Yeah.
John, you have a big brain too. I know that you guys always talk about Dr. Brucato having a big brain, but I can see that you do too, and with your writing. And yes, I have been chased by a swan before, so I get the bird reference, Josh. I've been chased by a swan.
Wait a minute. What about Josh's brain?
No, don't bring me up.
Yes,
of course. You said it made it sound like you're smart, and then you like skip.
Oh, I don't mean it that way. I just meant
he's got like a walnut brain, or like he's like a dinosaur.
Not at all. Not at all.
That's so funny.
He plays more of a role of the facilitator, so I'm not as familiar with Josh's theories and his thinking yet, because when I see him, he's facilitating more often.
I'm a host.
That was the most light thing I have heard in a very long time.
Shut up, Gary.
I told you, a facilitator.
Yeah, whatever. Well, this was a great call. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Take care of yourself. That was so funny. Josh, don't you understand that the whole fun of puns is that they're bad?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
the
but you're like exceptionally bad.
That's why
I've heard some great puns told over dead bodies. I mean, I know that sounds insensitive, but
Oh boy.
See what you started. Look at this.
That's the name of our new podcast.
No, it's not. Yeah.
Two big brains and Josh. It's so funny. Pinky and the two brains.
So like 2.5 men.
Yeah, right.
Pretty much, yeah.
Lord, actually, Josh, all joking aside, you are very bright, so don't ever think we don't think so.
I don't particularly find myself particularly bright, but I try sometimes. We actually have one more call. Let's go ahead and do that, and then we'll do the very special thing that we want to do here. Bees 9, go ahead. You're on.
Hi. I was just wanted to mention some things about the timeline, and the assumption that he was in the house 41 minutes. There's nothing in the timeline that indicates that. If you look at the 147, that's when he took off the front ring camera. Then the next we have the 2 o'clock, her heart rate, right? So we're kind of assuming he's in the house about that time, about 2 o'clock. And the disconnection from her pacemaker from the Bluetooth was at 2:28. So really all we have is 2 to 2:28. Everyone's assuming 147, camera removed. He's in the house at 147. The timeline doesn't say that. It just says the camera was removed. So this whole 41-minute thing is just, I don't think that's accurate. That's just one point I had.
I think it's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do too. I think it's that
good point.
That there is a gap there, but that doesn't mean that the person was kind of meandering or lingering.
Right.
So
Yeah, and then we have the 212, the movement in the backyard too. So I don't know where the whole 41-minute assumption started, kind of like telephone, and everyone just kept going on. Oh, he was in the house 41 minutes. I'm like, there's nothing in the timeline that indicates that. And then we're going off of a false assumption, and then we're
out. Then how would you alternatively explain the timeline?
well, just that at 147, we know he takes. I mean, obviously, I don't know exactly. I wasn't there, but we do know at 147 that the Ring camera, or I'm sorry, Nest camera was removed. That's all we know. We
Yeah, but
can, I think reasonable deduction, if her heart rate raised at 2 a.m., maybe we could assume he was in the house at 2 a.m., but we definitely can't assume he was in the house at 147. And we know, oh, go ahead.
But can't we assume that he was, or they, or he, or whoever was in the area?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But we're talking about in the house spending time with the victim. And people were saying, you know, that's completely different than being messing around outside with the cameras. And then also one other point I had was the ransom note, which I completely discounted. I know one of them was fake, the guy in LA, but the FBI took it seriously. And so I don't think it can just be thrown away. I actually kind of discounted it myself, but I went back and I listened to what they said, and the FBI agent in charge, Keith Jenke, said, quote unquote, it was carefully crafted, including elements only known to investigators. Mm-hmm. And I think we can't discount that if that's the case. And then I looked back at TMZ reporting, who I don't love TMZ, but he did, I quoted that he said that and I know they're not listing everything, but he did say that it had, it said what Nancy was wearing, damage in the house, and the broken floodlight in the backyard. An FBI agent on Fox News confirmed that the black floodlight was broken. So I think the perpetrator, it could be true, and he's trying to prove, look, I'm the guy who did this, give me the money. And then a lot of these experts are saying, well, you know, it's not typical. They would show proof of life and blah, blah, blah. Well, not if they accidentally killed her. They're not going to show proof of life, but they still want to prove that they're the ones that did it. And why not get money out of it? I looked into some crypto kidnappings, thinking I wouldn't find any. I found a bunch. There was one in Soho. They were a wealthy person was targeted, held hostage, tortured. He lived, and they were arrested. There was also one where a pair of brothers, low-level criminals, drove 18 hours to Minnesota, held a family hostage, kidnapped the father, and took him to his cabin. You can look this up. It's all, like, everything I'm saying is these two brothers were caught in Texas. They caught him with a Wendy's receipt they found in camera footage in the neighborhood. He lived in a wealthier neighborhood. They knew he had crypto. They caught the two brothers. However, the whole time during the kidnapping, they were on the phone with another person who was instructing them what to do, kind of like the chef, like I guess Gary would say. And they never caught him. And this happened 5 months ago was the arrest.
Well, let me ask you something. Let's say, for the sake of argument, and I enjoy the architecture of your thought here. It's interesting to listen to you. Let's say, for the sake of argument, we do not discount the ransom note. When was it written?
Well, if I'm correct, there was multiple ones. There was the guy in LA, which was just an opportunist trying to get money. The other two, or I believe there was three, and I listened to Phoenix 11 News, and she reported that one of the ransom notes was a declaration. I don't know the exact dates. I'd have to go back and watch the news show. But she said the second note was like a declaration. They also said in the ransom note, you're going to have no way to contact us. So we're comparing this to like typical kidnappings, but in these crypto schemes, they just want to get the money and be gone. And
here's what I'm saying. Why would the notes stop?
Because she's not alive, and they figured the more we tried, like, this is kind of my theory to go along with this logic, if this is true, and I could be completely wrong. I'm just saying we shouldn't discount it. I think that they didn't intend to kill her. I think they kidnapped her, not understanding how fragile she was. She didn't make it, and they went, oh, and they could have just left it alone. But why not get some money out of this? Because that was the original intent, hence the targeted but could happen to anyone statement. And they try to get money, and after a while they figured the more they're making contact, the more likelihood that FBI can track them down. The FBI still hasn't tracked where those ransom notes came from. And like I said, in that other case, or so far, I shouldn't say never, hopefully they will. It was 5 months ago. They arrested the kind of low-level criminals. In these schemes, a lot of times they use like lower-level criminals to do the actual kidnapping, but they have someone that's like overseas or in another state that was directing them, how to get the money. So I would go with that theory, or just a, like a gardener's friend or cousin or something like that. I could also see that too. But and I take everything Nano says with a grain of salt, so you never know what the hell he means, but he did say targeted, but could happen to anyone. And I just think that to me, and if we look at the 2 raids with Carlos and Luke, for example, and I'm not, obviously I don't think that they did it or had involvement. They've moved on from them, but it kind of tells us who the FBI and who the police, what type of criminal or what their theory was. If you look at Luke and Carlos, why would you think that they would do it? For money, right? It wouldn't be a essay, or we're obsessed with Savannah Guthrie, like a parasocial type. So that kind of gives me a hint, at least, whether they're right or wrong, I don't know, that's kind of the theory they're going with. They might be off.
But look, knowing all I do about the criminal mind, my issue with this theory, and I mention it only because of playing devil's advocate. It's fun to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
That are cerebral and kind of logical. Is if you had intended to take someone for ransom and they died, and you just wanted money, what you would do, putting yourself into the unempathic, uncompassionate, icy mind of this kind of person, is you would then send a note saying, I'll tell you where the body is if you send money. I'll tell you where the corpse is so you could have some closure. Send this money and you'll get the info. They didn't do that.
But
that.
Yeah. No, I understand it. This is just, I wouldn't discount it just because of them saying that it had information only known to investigators. But I also think that would, the more contact and telling them where the body is telling them 100% it was us, and it's just a matter of time until they track it. And maybe there's evidence on the body that could lead back to them. It could have.
I don't think there's any remnant of that body left. If she's deceased, I think that the body is gone.
Well, I think that for dealing with that type of scenario, like there was the 2 teenagers, for instance, that had the crypto scheme and held elderly people hostage and all of that in Scottsdale, Arizona recently. They were from California and they were arrested, had no criminal background whatsoever. But sometimes I think, well, why would they do this or why would they do that? But criminals, who knows why they do certain things? Like if, sociopaths, I don't think we're dealing with like a serial killer psychopath type, just are impulsive. wanted the money, maybe thought better of it, thought they're on to us. I think it's a possibility. It could be a hoax. It could be a lucky guess that they had things in the ransom note that were only known to investigators. It really could just be a lucky guess.
But your hypothesis presupposes that there really is no chef. Your theory basically that there's just like a group enterprise of dumb thugs.
Not necessarily. No, not necessarily, because in the case with the two brothers,
right?
That traveled 18 hours to Minnesota, who were caught in Texas. They never caught the chef.
But I'm asking, your hypothesis, it relies simply on the intelligence and experience of the dopes who actually carry this out, or if you also suspect there's a more intelligent agent behind that who either hired them or used them as Confederates or a shield.
Yeah, I think it could go either way. There could be that. It could be a chef, or it could just be the two guys and that was their last ditch effort to get money, and then thought, you know what, like, I don't want to get caught. I don't want to get the death penalty. We tried, we didn't get what we wanted, and that's that. I mean,
well, I hope you're right, because that one will probably turn on the other.
The thing is too is that I just lost my train of thought. Sorry. I'm thinking through what you're saying, but in the case, I think if there is a chef and the lower level criminal, like in that case I was talking about, it's more likely that they'll get the waiters, as you call them, then
I think. And then help to lead up the ladder. Well, this is a very interesting call. I like the instinct and imagination and logic you bring. You think a lot like a detective, to be honest with you, don't you think, John?
Oh, yes, very much.
Thank you.
You're investigating a number of parallel areas of investigation, and that's how we do it. You don't get wedded to one theory. So I can imagine your thinking process.
Well, I hope you do something with it for a living, because you seem to be exhilarated by the puzzle of it, and I think it takes a certain kind of mind to inhibit the temptation to assume.
Yeah, and I did assume, honestly, that when I heard TMZ and all that, it wasn't until I was like, you know what, I'm going to go back and listen to some old, like, find out what's actually fact, what people said, some old news articles, and then I just was like, do people actually kidnap people for crypto and ransom? Is that even a thing? And I figured no. I was kind of shocked to find a lot of cases, and it's on the rise. They said 2025, they've seen a rise by 75% in these type of crimes. And I was like, I had no idea.
It's a new evil. I mean, that's exactly what I write about. As soon as there's a technology, someone uses it. It's like a rule. If I had to have a rule, I would say, as soon as any technology is created, it will be used for two things. One, it'll be used sexually. And secondly, it'll be used for for homicide. It's one or the other, or some kind of crime. It's just anything comes out. Somebody goes, how can I use that to get turned on? And how can I use it to hurt someone? I mean, that's it. That's like the sign of a new technology, right?
Yeah, it's scary.
The way it goes, So, but keep up the good work, and there's something in your instinct that feels like when the kids' game, where, like you say, you're warm. There's something in your thinking that has a warmth to it. It feels like you're sort of getting you're getting it. So up
and that's probably not super likely, but I think that I even discounted, well, the motive is not money, because nothing was taken. Number one, I don't really know that, and number two, not necessarily, but a lot of the things I discounted early on, I'm just kind of going back to, and I'm questioning why I discounted them and trying to, look at it from all angles. And like I said, thinking about Luke and Carlos, I'm like, why would they be looking at those guys and all that? So
if you go, and then this will be the last thing we'll say before we end. But I think the other problem you have in this case is that anything that feels like an officially established fact, or technically speaking, it's like we almost don't even know if it's true.
Right. That's why I went back and looked at these, and I'm like, is this is these crimes really happen. I quoted him, he said, information only known to investigators. Plus, just looking at the videos Savannah made with her family, they were talking to someone directly. So they took it at least seriously enough for her to make those videos. So I just thought, you can't discount that,
Yeah, no, but you make some very interesting and thought-provoking points.
That's
so
a great call.
I really appreciate it, and
Yeah.
we all keep up the good work and
Thank you guys.
keep
Yeah,
holding
absolutely.
people to being more careful with their logic. It's a rare quality, so you keep doing that. And there are certain people, don't even bother to go near them, or you will rip your hair out of your head.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate everything you're doing, and I love the show.
Yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate
Have a good evening.
I mean, we're logical creatures, and there are certain people we have to stay away from.
So we've come to the part of the show that I've really been looking forward to this ever since it was brought up, and we're gonna have John here read a little what would you call it, an excerpt or
I think a couple of paragraphs, a sample from my book, which is Beach Blanket Bedlam. And you can see my cat while I'm seeing people noticing my cat walking around. And that cat's name is Nick. I refer to him as Nick the lunatic. This is the second book in my memoirs. This was when I moved to the Oceanside Police Department in Southern California, which at the time the police referred to the city as where the debris meets the sea. So this is from the foreword of the book, which tells you, if you have an interest in this book, I would suggest listen to this carefully, because this is not everybody's cup of tea. This is directly from the early 1980s, and as you probably figured out, I am known for my sarcasm anyway. The chapter begins with warning: keep out of the reach of marshmallow people and snowflakes. If ingested, do not induce vomiting. Back in the early 1980s, downtown Oceanside was a violent and anarchic blend of gunslinging, saloon brawling Dodge City, and The Walking Dead, with assorted drug addicts and homeless lunatics chewing up the scenery in the roles of zombies. The undermanned police department was given a mission by the city council to reclaim the streets from the criminal element by pretty much any means necessary. This was in an era before body cameras existed. You cannot imagine the fun I had night after night. It's probably wise to begin with a brief cautionary reminder. If you're a snag, and that stands for sensitive new age guy or gal, and prone to becoming upset and offended by descriptions of bloody murder scenes, brutal hand-to-hand street combat, the casual infliction of corporal punishment on resisting offenders, aberrant sexual behavior held up for ruthless mockery, ridicule of the mentally ill, corpses employed as props in comedy routines, and a pervasive theme of jolly disdain for humanity, don't read any further. Just don't. And no, this isn't a bit of clumsy reverse psychology intended to goad you into reading this stroll down memory alley. Service with a Sneer was the first book in the series, and it contained some horrible events and imagery. Yet that volume was like Anne of Green Gables in comparison to some of the cruel and appalling things you'll find in the pages ahead. It's also important to warn of the verbal microaggressions that are an intrinsic part of the narrative. When people disobeyed our instructions, we often called them insulting, obscene, and hurtful names. We also threatened folks with physical violence in the secret hope that this would make the actual lumping of their melons unnecessary. In addition, we mercilessly mocked those who demonstrated a fundamental lack of common sense or basic awareness of the laws of natural selection. Also remember that these are true stories. If I had tried to submit these tales as fiction, they'd have been instantly rejected as contrived and unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll leave it right there.
I mean, it's great. And so we have
Eminently readable.
Oh God, it's so good. And we have Beach Blanket Bedlam, and also this. Let me show this.
Service with a Sneer was the first one.
Service with the Sneer.
That's I mentioned working in the desert. That's a photo taken near Palm Springs when I worked for Riverside Sheriffs, and to cover some time when I was a military policeman in Britain. I would just, for those who have read it and enjoyed it, I'm honored that you like it, and I'm basically tomorrow I will finish the next book, which is about my years in homicide. Well, the first 2 years in homicide, and that one is called Bring Out Your Dead. And for those of you who remember Monty Python and the Holy Grail, that gives you some indication of, I mean, if you like true crime stuff, there's true crime stuff in there, but there's also, I give you some insight in the way we behave at the scenes, is kind of some insight that we aren't standing there going, "Death, where's thy sting?"
Well, so we're gonna link those into also we're running the links in the chat right now, but also we're gonna link those Amazon links so you can go right to that and buy those books to support John and his wonderful writing. And thank you for your time as well. Well, we really appreciate your expertise and that there are two enormous brains on this panel. I fully appreciate it. It's just your style of writing is exactly what I like I like that kind of book, because it's just, I don't know, I like the dry humor and
Right.
the do not induce vomiting and that kind of stuff is so funny to me.
You'll be shocked. People thought I was sarcastic when I worked. I don't know.
Okay.
Oh yeah, you're not sarcastic.
Not me.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
me. I'm there to serve the community.
Right. That's right. And Dr. Gary, you're working on a new book as well.
Yeah.
Two new books.
2 new books. I'm trying to finish reading a book, and so I'm a book. You know what? I just started a book today. I will tell you what it is. It's called. Hold on. It's really good. It's somebody last night recommended it, and it is Man's Search for Meaning.
Of course, Viktor Frankl.
Oof. I'm a little.
Yeah.
I'm yeah.
Therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a few chapters in, and it's intense. It's
of course.
It's quite the.
So his break from Freud, the Holocaust, the death of his wife, the meaning making. It's very brilliant.
I just started it today, so it's awesome so far, and I'm sure that it gets better and better. But anyway, you guys, I thank you so much, John.
Beware the Ides of March.
Also,
yes.
It is the Ides of March here in New
I'm
York.
as constant as the Northern Star.
Do you know what we're talking about, Josh?
No, I have no idea.
The Ides of March, the Ides of a month in the Roman calendar was the middle date, the 15th, right? And the Ides of March, the augur says in Julius Caesar, the Shakespeare play, beware the Ides of March, because it turns out to be when they kill him.
And Caesar says the Ides of March have come, and the augur says, "Aye, but they haven't passed."
Well, when you said Shakespeare, that's why I didn't know.
This is going to be an ongoing. This is going to be an ongoing gag.
What? What's going to be an ongoing game?
Mocking your intelligence.
Oh, I don't care. You think that I care about that?
Well, I hope not, because it's ridiculous.
And happy St. Patrick's Day.
Right. And Josh, thank you for always being such a good and caring friend.
Yes.
To quote Shakespeare again,
awesome,
if the while I think on thee, dear friend, all losses are restored and sorrows end. The thing is a very beautiful line of that Shakespeare wrote about friendship.
Well, to quote the Yin Yang
rapper, I'm gone.
To quote the Yin Yang twins, from the windows to the walls.
To quote Sir Mix-a-Lot. But in all seriousness, oh, and by the way, I applaud the person in the audience who said "et tu brute," because that is correct Latin.
That is
"et tu brutus," "et tu brutus," but it would be correct to say "et tu brute," because you're directing your remark to Brutus. Very clever. But Josh, in all seriousness, thank you, and I do hope people will continue to read the New Evil. There is a glitch going on where Amazon inexplicably in the print version of the book has omitted my name as the co-author. It has it there for the audiobook or whatever. I have the publisher repairing it. I don't know what the heck that's about.
I can't even
graded, it's very odd. But
it's gotta be frustrating too, right?
Frustrating. I mean, it is my book, so it feels kind of weird. But and by the way, there was no more shameless punster than Michael Stone.
Yeah, but
Michael Stone would get in trouble for his puns. They were brutal.
Don't get your feelings hurt because I said your puns suck. You have a big brain, and that's what matters.
Thank you, Josh. But in all seriousness, it was unbearable. Unbearable. His punnery. And I mean, I could think of ones off the top of my head that still make me laugh. But it was something about his brain that he would passively listen to what you were saying and like catch wordplay and then like feel the need to point it out. I remember we had a long conversation once where I sent him something and he didn't get it. And then I said, I'll send it again. And he said, you mean you resent it? And this became the idea that resent and resent are spelled the same way, became a long conversation about the double meaning of, things like that. He was always catching, and he was especially fond of off-color puns.
Well, I'm going to go and prepare a soliloquy for how smart I am. And then when I deliver it, I'm going to pontificate the entire time.
Pontificate, boy, oh boy.
Ooh.
All these long, these sesquipedalian words.
That's right.
Well, anyway, but in all seriousness, thank you. And
Thank you.
I had a lot of fun being on. I always love being with the two of you. It's a fun energy.
Yeah. And John, thank you so much.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much. And yeah, this is delight and the opportunity to talk to people. It's a great night.
Well, the audiences love you, John. You're like a natural in front of a camera.
You really are.
A kick out of you. But I think John and I should write a book.
I think
I second that. I like that idea a lot
because we get along great, and I think we would just have a blast writing a book together, and it would do well too.
I suspect it would, and yeah, because two big brains. There's the title of the book.
There you go. Remember that movie Easy Money, Josh, with Rodney Dangerfield?
Yeah.
And you remember they go into Monahan's, the department store that his mother-in-law had, before she supposedly died. You've seen it, John, right?
Yeah. It's been years, but yeah.
And then they walk up to a counter, and this bald guy who's like, really obnoxious, tries to tell them off because he thinks they're a couple of bums. And then a second later, an identical twin of the bald guy pops up, and Rodney Dangerfield says, "Why don't you put your two heads together and make an ass of yourself?" Exactly. So there you go. Anyway, all right. Well,
all right.
So much.
Thank you all. Good night.
By the way, wait 1 second. You guys, interview room tomorrow. You can go to the interview room page right now, click the notification bell. These two big, enormous brains will be on there tomorrow, along with a couple other big brains as well. And so and don't tell Chris that I didn't include him there. He's got a moderately sized brain, but in all seriousness, he's brilliant as well. But
so 8 o'clock, I think, Eastern, right?
8 o'clock Eastern,
Yep.
but click the notification bell. And yeah, exactly. I get no respect. That's kind of how I feel right now, but I'm fine with it. You know, I really am. Okay, so we'll see you guys tomorrow on the show.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night,
Bye.
guys. Bye-bye. All right. That was a blast. I had a great time. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here and supporting the show. And what's up, Real Mikey? Thank you so much. Real Mikey says, watching on my TV, but the show chat some love too with the membership real quick. Panel, always my faves across the board. We appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being here. You can say whatever you want about me, but you know, we put great shows together over here. And you know, thank you to the interview room for loaning me his guests. He has the best guests, and in turn I get the best guests because of it. And it's so much fun. And so interesting to be able to hear these very experienced people discuss these cases. And I'm honored to be a part of it. So thank you guys so much. And curious, how did you guys find each other? Well, that's a good question. I'll tell you. The interview room, Chris McDonough, I met him about 5 years ago here on YouTube during his show. I was a big fan of his show, and then we just sort of linked up. And then after that, I met Dr. Gary, and then I met Mr. John Lamb, and met many other people because of it. And it's just been awesome, you know. So I found you by accident. Glad I did. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much again, guys. You guys have a good night.